Wonderful. Good evening, Peralta community. It is 6:07 p.m. on Tuesday, October 25th. And this is Vice President Diana Delphine Polk. I'm calling this meeting to order. Can we do roll call, please?
Yes, ma'am. Student Trustee Hogan.
Here.
Student Trustee Latino.
Here.
Trustee Withrow.
Here.
Trustee Jenkins.
Here.
Trustee Handy. I see you on here, Trustee Handy. Trustee Gonzalez-Ewan.
Right here.
Trustee Delphine Polk.
Here.
And Trustee Napola Bellaris. Is she on yet? Not yet. Okay, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Let's kind of go to Pledge of Allegiance. We're a little bit out of order, but we'll go ahead and do Pledge of Allegiance 4.2. I'd like to ask Trustee Withrow, would you be so kind?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands,
one
under God,
nation, under God, indivisible,
Liberty and
with
justice.
liberty and justice for all.
Wow.
Thank you very much. We did roll call already, so 4.3 has been taken care of. 4.4, affirmation of the statement of cooperation. Over the course of the last 2 years, we, the PCTV Board of Trustees, have been engaging in a process of reflection to improve our effectiveness as a board. As a result, we have conducted a critical review of our work over the last several years through a formal self-evaluation and established meaningful goals. The Peralta Board has adopted a statement of cooperation that codifies our commitment to set the bar for excellence in governance and community college leadership and to lead by example for our Peralta colleges. The full statement of cooperation is attached to the agenda, but in summary, we have committed to 1, build trust and seek to understand each other, to be prepared and follow good governance and ethical protocols, and model the behavior we want others to exhibit. We therefore commit to honoring and upholding these commitments in words and in action. 4.5, report of action taken in closed session. I don't believe we have anything to report out. Is that correct, Sasha?
That is correct.
Great, thank you so much. 4.6, approval of the agenda. May I entertain a motion, please?
so moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Point of order.
Sure. Trustee Gonzalez.
Chancellor, did you check into the item that I inquired about? And whether
Yes.
it's time sensitive?
Yes, I did. Thank you, Trustee Ewan. We're recommending that the board item on the easy paths be pulled. We have to do a little bit more evaluation, and we will bring it back as a ratification. It's already been voted on by the students, and we'll just bring it at the next meeting as a ratification. So if it could be pulled from the agenda for tonight, I would recommend that to the board, and you'd be prior to your approval. And if whoever was the first and the second would take that as a friendly amendment, then we could vote on the motion at hand.
The maker of the motion accepts that as a friendly amendment.
Who was, I don't know who was the second, Sasha?
Trustee Handy.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I agree.
And
Thank
that's
you,
item
Trustee Handy.
7.2.
Yes,
Thank you.
item 7.2, I'm sorry, I didn't have my agenda in front of me.
Thank you
Madam
very
Vice
much.
President,
Yes.
might I pull 8.1?
Yes. Do we have that noted, Sasha?
Are we pulling 8.1 for discussion or pulling it off the agenda?
Discussion.
So we're going to pull item 7.2 off the agenda and pull item 8.1 for discussion. Is that correct?
Does that sound right, Trustee Jenkins?
Yes.
And again, I think that both the motioner and the seconder have to do a friendly amendment since we already had that on the table.
I'll accept that as a friendly amendment to the motion.
I accept that.
Thank you.
Are we ready for roll call? Student Trustee Hogan,
Yes.
Student Trustee Latino,
Yes.
Trustee Withrow,
Yes.
Trustee Jenkins,
Yes.
Trustee Handy,
Yes.
Trustee Gonzalez Ewan,
Yes.
trustee Delphine Polk,
Yes.
trustee Napoli Bellarice. Is she over here? Nah, still having issues. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Oh, great. Thank you, President. Motion passes.
Thank you very much. 4.7, approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Thank you. Second.
Second.
Thank you
Student
very much.
trustee,
Let's do roll call.
student trustee Hogan,
Yes.
student trustee Latino,
Yes.
trustee Withrow,
Yes.
trustee Jenkins,
Yes.
trustee Handy,
Yes.
trustee Gonzalez Ewan,
Yes.
trustee Delphine Polk,
Yes.
trustee Napoli Bellarice.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Let's go ahead and move to 4.8, Associated Student Government Reports. Do we have any student government representatives here with us?
Yes, ma'am. We'll start with Mazin Saeed. Are you?
Go ahead, please.
Saeed, I see you are on as a panelist. Can you hear us? You're muted if you are. Okay, we can move on to student trustee Lisa Hogan for Merritt.
Yes, hi. I would like to report that last week on October the 20th, we at Merritt College had our Black Panther Party celebration. It was a great turnout, and our ASMC was there, and we were a part of that celebration. It was very nice to see the large turnout. I want to thank everyone that helped to make that happen. Also, we had our food drive, Merritt Soul, which also had a large turnout. The time for that is every Thursday from 12 to 1, and we encourage students at Merritt College to please participate in that drive because it really helps, and it was some really nice items that were there. And that's all I have to report right now. Thank you.
Are there any other student? Oh, we have Amola Atol Ogebi. I apologize if I totally butchered that.
Omalola.
I apologize.
No worries. Hi, everyone. My name is Obolola Tolagbe. I'm the president, Associated Students of Laney College. So I'll be talking about Halloween event. We have Halloween event coming up, and ASLC is partnering with the Black Student Union to make this happen. We're actually organizing this for children from schools around Laney College. And we also have Day of the Dead coming up in November. We're going to be partnering with Latinx Club. And we also have end of the year party coming up in December after examinations. That's all I have for now.
If there are any other student presidents, please raise your hand.
I believe Mazen has raised
Oh,
his
there he
hand.
is. Okay.
Thank you.
He can go ahead and speak. He's on the panelist.
Hi. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Cool. So ASBCC reopened the ASBC applications for a couple of vacant positions, and we had many people apply, and this week we are conducting interviews. Also, we've had many clubs at BCC come to us for funding, and it's great to see these clubs using ASBCC funds to have more events on campus for the students. Our ASBCC board members have also been assigned to committees of their shared interest and have been attending these committees as student representatives. I believe last week was our undocumented students week of actions. And there were a number of daily events Also, every Wednesday, we have on-campus enrollment workshops that have started for students who are interested in enrolling. I don't know if it's too late, but for both late start and also spring semester, once again, every Wednesday is from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. And then finally, our basic needs center is growing slowly. We are offering more items such as more food pantry, like groceries, and also now we are offering clothing as well. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
That is all the reports we have.
Great, thank you so much. We appreciate your work. Next, we'll go to 4.9, Peralta Classified Senate Report. Terrence, please go ahead.
Okay, good evening, President Reese, Vice President Delphin Polk, members of the Board of Trustees, Chancellor Jackson, presidents, and guests. Tonight we have 2 classified Senate campus reports. The first report comes from the Merritt College Classified Senate. The next Senate meeting will be on Wednesday, October 26th at 2:30. The Classified Senate leadership will host a professional development retreat on December 7th to provide an opportunity for staff to discuss and develop personal and professional goals for classified professionals. The second report comes from the Laney College Classified Senate. The Senate is pleased to announce the dedication of the ribbon cutting for the renaming of the Laney College Classified Senate Lounge to the Rivas Classified Senate Lounge. This will take place Tuesday, November 1st from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. The event will be held in the Laney Tower lobby and live streamed via Zoom. Renee Rivas' family will also be in attendance. More information will be forthcoming. The Senate had a special meeting with the Institutional Effectiveness Partnership Initiative Partnership Research Team, which met with Senate President Hope Lane, shop steward Alejandro Acosta, and publicist Katrina Santos. Discussion items included disparities between classified and faculty professional development and a mentor matching program for the classified Senate. It's Flex Day, Thursday, October 19th. The Senate would like to thank everyone for participating in the Fall Flex 2022 Growing Our Own Professional Development Day event. We had over 60 classified professionals in attendance. They helped make this event fun, informative, and very successful. Thank you to all that attended and participated. Highlights of the day included a delicious meal provided by the company Catered with Class. The Laney Culinary provided coffee, hibiscus, and lemonade beverages. Chef Lorianne Raji and her 4th semester chocolatier candy making class provided assorted chocolates. There was a presentation and team building exercise presented by Dr. William Ochoa and Michael Cruz entitled Identity Workshop, the complexities of identities and how it relates to serving yourself and communities of color. There was an exercise workshop led by Extreme Hip Hop with Layla Fa and her team, as well as a presentation on participatory governance and SEIU Local 10-1 by PCS President Terrence Fisher and SEIU Chief Steward Alejandro Acosta. The Senate's PD Planning Committee is looking forward to collaborating with the Laney College PD Committee on planning for the spring MedFlex activities. Upcoming holiday events. The Laney College Classified Senate's 4th annual holiday book and toy drive. Please donate a new book and or a gender neutral toy, and we will deliver it to the Laney Children's Center. More information will be forthcoming. You can also contact Hope Lane at hlane@peralta.edu. That is the end of the campus reports. Thank you very much for your continued support of the Peralta Classified Senate.
Thank you very much, Terrence. Let's go ahead and go to 4.10, the District Academic Senate Report. Donald Moore, if you're with us, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Vice President Delphine Polk, President Reese, Dr. Jackson, and members. I'd like to report that next week, the Academic Senate will be attending the State Senate plenary. We have one in the fall and in the spring where we deal with 10+1 matters. And obviously a number of things are up, including a lot of different state mandates and different legislations that have come up that we're hoping to have the senates from the UC and the CSU begin meeting with us for stuff in terms of the state. I think that this fall has been good, if not great, in terms of our enrollment. And I think, I hope the board has had the opportunity of visiting the campuses. I think there's quite a lot going on, different activities at the different campuses. And I really welcome the fact that we have more of our students and faculty and staff and administrators on the campuses. I was there last week at a activity was going on the main part of the quad at Laney campus, and I was just so amazed at the number of students and interactions going on. I was so enamored with it that I sent some pictures over to Dr. Jackson, because I was saying, wow, what a really vibrant community this is. And I really think that as we move forward, we really need to plan for when all of the campuses are back and the number of face-to-face classes we aren't counting, but we know that there's going to be mostly face-to-face classes with a small but significant portion of the classes still remaining online. I think we really need to have that in order to really get our community excited once again about coming to our campuses. This fall, we're going to be looking at what the FTF for next year is going to be. And the concern continues to be with faculty. I can't express how often I continue to get questions regarding the process of identifying, based upon our FTES from a year ago, what in fact will be our estimate for FTF allocations, and that this is supposed to basically be provided to the finance department, and then in the budget development that will be occurring in the spring, it will be incorporated in the allocation that is going to occur starting July of 2023. And part of our concern is that when you have the increments that we've had with the colleges, looking at last year's numbers in terms of, I think the total amount was 11,700 FTES, it really will be a major slap if this allocation process really continues to reduce the number of FTF. I think that we've all been working really hard in terms of getting students into the classes. And I know for spring, we're going to be making a major effort as well. And so my hope is that there's some dialogue from the ground up that the various chairs of the department are working with the deans to come up with a good and reasonable estimates of what they need for their classes, whether or not their classes have been filled and on waiting lists and so on, and make accordingly the classes. I know that that's hard to do given the budget allocation for this year, but we should really look at ways of trying to keep this number of students and our enrollment going, and some type of incentive to the colleges for what they're trying to do, I think would be most welcome. And most definitely, as we go into spring and we are allocating the FTF, that we seriously look at the fact that we cannot cut ourselves out of this spiral, that we are going to have to increase our FTF in order to get more students into the classroom. So this issue has been very forcefully brought to the Senates, and we will continue to try to work with the chancellor, the board, and the presidents to see how we might be able to begin to address this in a more positive light rather than the dismal cut that we've been on. So thank you very much, everybody. And we look forward to working with everybody as we move forward into this upcoming year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Donald. Chancellor, I believe you had a few words before we head to public comment. Is that correct?
Yes, thank you
Okay.
for allowing me a point of privilege to bring Dr. McKinley in. We've had several questions regarding our masking policy and our movement to Alliant. So Dr. McKinley, if you would provide some comments. I wanted to do it in public session, so appreciate you, Vice President Delphi Polk, and the board for allowing us to do so. Dr. McKinley.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. Good evening, Board of Trustees, colleagues, and guests. Just very quickly, we just wanted to make sure that everyone knows that we will do everything we need to do to ensure that all of our retirees who are now beginning the transition from our self-insured retirement plan to health insurance plan to our plans with Retiree First. We have contracted Retiree First who will provide those plans, an Advantage plan. And for those that don't want a Medicare Advantage plan, then they will be able to get traditional Medicare with a supplemental plan and a Part D plan. And Retiree First also they are providing a concierge service for our retirees, and they will reach out to all retirees whenever necessary to ensure that they get the plan they want. And our assurance is that we will take care that 100% of all our retirees will get the plan of their choice, and we will call them if necessary and do whatever is necessary to ensure that that happens. The second issue is with masking. As everyone might recall, we have a COVID prevention plan that we promulgated back in June of 2020, and as required by Cal OSHA. In that plan, it's very clear that we have said that we will follow guidelines from federal, state, and local authorities. Currently, Alameda County, which is the jurisdiction we're in, does not require masking for education institutions such as ours. Therefore, an announcement went out on Monday, yesterday, letting everyone know that masking is now optional on Peralta campuses. We encourage folks to wear masks if they choose, but it is their choice. So it's, and that if that should change, if the guidance from Alameda County or the state or the federal government for that matter changes, and then we will also make those changes. But currently, masking is optional. Thank you very much, Chancellor. You're on mute.
Thank you, Board, and also thank you, Vice President Pope, Delphine Pope.
Okay, shall we go to public comment, please? 4.11.
Yes, ma'am. Anybody who would like to make a public comment at this time, please raise your hand. I'm going to go ahead and move Jennifer Shinosky over at the moment.
Hi, good evening. I assume you're waiting for me. I have an old Peralta computer. Good evening. I would like to just start. I wasn't even planning on commenting about the mask policy by saying, you know, the mask policy in Alameda County has been changed for quite some time. And PFT has serious concerns about the unilateral decision to make these changes without negotiating with any of the bargaining units about the policies or their impacts. So an email was already sent today, including all of our members, and we will proceed with an unfair labor practice charge if we can't resolve this. That's just an aside. Okay, so on to my public comments. You know, I've been thinking a lot about leadership lately, what leadership really means, what is a leader, how should a leader behave, and who decides who's a leader. Leadership is definitely not a title. It's not blaming other people for mistakes and trying to cover up errors. It's not ignoring criticism or making excuses when there are failures or there are problems. Leadership isn't covering things up and really just ignoring the bad and pretending like everything is good. Leadership is supporting other people. It's listening even when you don't want to hear what's being said. It's lifting up all voices and looking for ways to make other people bigger and to make things truly better. Peralta has a serious lack of leadership, and that is why morale is so low. It's why our facilities are in constant and continual state of disrepair. It's why our enrollment continues to plummet and classes continue to get cut semester after semester. It's why no one wants to be involved anymore or take on leadership roles. You all here, the people whose faces get to appear on the Zoom screen, have the titles and the salaries associated with leaders. We beg you to make the choices that we need you to make to actually be leaders and make things better in Peralta. Here's a suggestion for a start. The governor announced a couple weeks ago, that the COVID state of emergency is going to be lifted at the end of February. That means that the allowance for interim positions will be over in February. It's time to start planning right now. It's time to start planning today for permanent leadership that's rooted in our community and selected by the stakeholders who work in Peralta and live in this district.
10 seconds.
Don't wait and tell us in February that you didn't have time. You have time, and I'm going on record right now to ask you to start planning as leaders should. Thank you.
Next, we have Eddie Dillard. Give me just one moment. Eddie, whenever you're ready.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to talk about item 8.1 that's on the consent calendar to award a contract to Thompson Builders. And When this district needed support to get the bond measure passed for facilities, the district came to the Black contractors and asked us to support the district getting the funding. And we said, we will gladly support you if you advocate inclusion, participation of local minorities and local African-American contractors to participate in your projects. You have failed to do that. Kitchell, your construction manager on this project, should be terminated. They have brought to you a project that has no local participation, no African-American participation, no minority participation, and that is unacceptable. Promises made or promises kept. You have an obligation to be inclusive in your determination on who gets contracts. It is not right morally that you can allow contractors who do not live in Alameda County, who do not work in Alameda County, who do not pay taxes in Alameda County to get work on Peralta projects and exclude contractors who live in Alameda County, who pay taxes in Alameda County, and who are supportive of the bond measure. Promises made or promises kept. And so I ask you, do not award the Merritt College horticulture project to Thompson Builders. Do the same thing that you did with Wickman on the Merritt College Child Care Center. You gave them 30 days to come up with
10 seconds.
Participation. And if they didn't do that, then you would void all contracts and rebid it. So give Thompson 30 days. If they don't do it, void the award and rebid it. Thank you.
Next, we have Lowell Bennett.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for giving me this time to speak. I really want to, I think, follow up on some of the remarks that President Moore made about the FTEF process and let everyone know that the Merritt Senate did indeed pass a resolution regarding FTEF allocation and the allocation process. And one of the things I've been hearing is that there is not flexibility within the process, that FTEF levels that were set back in January, we really don't have the flexibility, either because the money that we would get from additional FTES that would be gained from expanding FTEF wouldn't come until much later, or because the funds wouldn't be available to do it. And on hearing that, what I would advocate is that the administration, along with the faculty and the classified professionals, come up with a process that has the flexibility built in to allow us to serve the increased demand from students that we're seeing from all the efforts that we're making. We can't have a process that doesn't have the flexibility built into it to meet additional demand when it occurs. Otherwise, we'll always be behind. We'll always be a semester or a year and a half behind the demand for the classes that we could be offering. And we'll never get those FTES back if we don't meet the demand as soon as it's available. Thank you.
Next, we have Bendu Griffin. I'm moving them over. Bendu, whenever you're ready.
Oh, thank you. I was speaking already. Good evening to everyone, to all of the esteemed, illustrious board members, Peralta board, and to all of those that are listening. I too am coming on behalf of item 8.1. The district has an obligation, yes, to ensure a level playing field for all constituents and participants in the Peralta district to participate on its projects, especially those projects that are funded on the back of the people in the areas that the projects go up in. When the message goes out that it's okay for contractors to come from outside the district and bring in workers from outside of the district and do work in the district, by you awarding contracts, and many of them use the excuse is state funds, is this fund, is that fund, is the Peralta's project. And as such, as owners of the project, we are your constituents. And that would be like someone coming up in this district meeting and trying to override you and override your decisions. That's how it feels when we are in the district and we see these contracts being awarded constantly. I will have to say, Wickman, my hat off to Wickman. They did the right thing. They went out there, they got local participation. They came back, you all awarded the project. I looked at the makeup of their team. They actually have minorities listed on their teams. Granted, this is always called a low bid. How low is the bid depends on who's bidding. Thompson received bids from local people, asked for bids. The excuse is always, one, there's no one there. Two, their bids are 6 times higher than everyone else. These same contractors, when they are required to meet the requirement of the goal, all of a sudden see the light and find local participation. We cannot hold one contractor's feet to the fire, and when it gets to the next contractor and the next, we relax, because then the message goes out. The district is picking and choosing which contractors to award to without them even making a conscientious effort to list anyone local. And then, but they're penalizing another contractor to make sure that they come in with local participation. Thompson needs a message sent to him. All of the contractors need a message sent. Is either meet the requirement or hold the project, pull it and rebid it. That's what we're asking you to do, and we're looking to you to do that for us. Thank you for listening. We appreciate your decision. Thank you.
Next, we have Bruce Gyron. Bruce, whenever you're ready.
Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
I'm sorry, too many buttons here. My name is Bruce Giron, and I am currently serving as the President and Chairman of the National Association of Minority Contractors. You all may be familiar with it as being a 54-year-old organization that was started here in the Bay Area, but you should know that it has 20 chapters located across the United States. Its mission is to advocate on behalf of and develop minority contractors. I'm looking, I want to express my support of practically every speaker here tonight, be it the comments about leadership are the comments about item number 8.1, the awarding of a very, very significant contract to a company that lists 17 subcontractors with 17 subcontractors that go as far as Klamath, Oregon, and as close as, unfortunately, Richmond and Hayward. That's about as close as we get out of the 17 choices to use. And we're baffled as to why they could not do a better job than that. You all exist to support the local students around here. Your focus is on local students, and it shouldn't end just with local students, but the entire ecosystem surrounding your mission of educating people locally. And that means you employ local people and you require your vendors to support that mission as well. It's all part of some greater scheme of support of being local. We don't see that being lived out here. Again, this is a very, very significant contract, and we know that you can do a better job, and we're asking you to do a better job. We talk about leadership, it's about doing the right thing. And we ask that you will start with this contract and do the right thing when it comes to subcontracting, being inclusive of local contractors. Thank you.
Next, we have Sean Gabbana.
Okay, I think I'm unmuted. Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. My name is Sean Gabbana. I am a Black minority woman subcontractor located in Oakland. I own a window and glass company. I'm a small local business. I am speaking up in protest of Thompson Builders being awarded the Merritt College project in Oakland, in Alameda County, where I have a business. It is a shame that they don't have any local or minority firms participating. I am a second generation business. I have 41 years of legacy, and I am ashamed that I'm still fighting for equity and inclusion. When is this going to stop? Local firms and minority firms should not be an option. It needs to be mandatory. And I'm asking the board to do something about it. This is not in support of item number 8.1. They should not be awarded a project if they're not showing that they can use subs like me that need to keep working. Thank you very much.
Next, we have Stanley Cooper.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
All right, how you doing, everyone? I just want to piggyback on what everyone said. First, let me introduce myself to you. My name is Stanley Cooper. I sit as the chair for the local chapter of NAACP under President George Holland. So everyone that spoke prior to me that I personally know. And so as I look at this board myself, I look at everyone on this board, and I love to see diversity. I see diversity on this board. I don't know who on the board actually live in the district, maybe even went to one of the colleges, Laney College, Merritt College. Like Bindu said, you shouldn't stop at the students. When you graduate, I personally went to, so I'm a general A civil engineer, and I'm from Oakland, grew up in Oakland. I went to Laney College, construction management, carpentry, all of that, and went on to higher education. I am a product of Peralta College. And it's very unfortunate that the district, I feel, is not really looking out for the locals. And I know you guys, I don't know how you take this when we're saying this, but this is what we're seeing. You know, this is black and white on the contracts that you guys are giving out. The contracts are giving out, the primes, the workers, they're not local. You know, we need to make sure that the first thing we do is we need to make the literature. We have to change the literature. We have to stop playing these games and saying that mandatory is good enough. I mean, I'm sorry, that goals are good enough. We need to make it mandatory. An example is Oakland Unified School District. They have mandatory goals. And when primes are in Thompson Builders and Wickman all went through this with Oakland Unified, the same contractor we're complaining on personally called me and a lot of other contractors when it was mandatory and asked us to bid. So why they're not calling us now? Because it's not mandatory. We have to make it mandatory. I want the district to look at putting stopping all contract at this point, especially not to award this one, a moratorium on all contracts until you guys go in there and change that literature and make it mandatory. And then we can all be proud of the work we do. You guys, you know, the seat you fill, you know, I know you look to serve, you serve someone. I will believe, I hope that someone is me and others that live in this district. And if you have to ask yourself this one thing,
10 seconds.
The people I serve are already happy. The contractors already happy, not getting work. We're not happy. We hope you hear us tonight. Do not award that contract. You know, what's the rush? And let's change the literature to mandatory, and we will not be sitting here anymore and discuss. Thank you so much.
And that is all the public comment we have for tonight.
Great, thank you so much, everybody, for sharing your thoughts. Let's go ahead and move to 4.12, Chancellor's reports.
Thank you, Vice President Delphine Polk. Tonight, I think we will follow the alphabetical order of our presentations, starting with BCC and then COA, followed by Laney and then Merritt College. So I will turn it over to President Angelica Garcia.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Vice President Delphine Polk, Chancellor Jackson, trustees, colleagues, and community members. In addition to the board report in your packet for this evening, I'd like to highlight a few items at Berkeley City College. Next Tuesday, November 1st at 10 a.m., Berkeley City College is being recognized as a champion of higher education for the college's work in supporting students to successful completion of an associate degree for transfer. This is the 4th consecutive year that BCC has received this recognition. Additionally, BCC is being recognized for 2 consecutive years now as an equity champion in higher education for increasing the number of Latinx students who complete an ADT. This means that at least 65% of Berkeley City College Latinx associate degree earners earned an ATD. We are honored that the Campaign for College Opportunity recognized the brilliance and excellence of BCC students, and therefore they are recognizing the commitment and work of classified professionals, faculty, and administrators alike in supporting students to transfer. There are numerous individuals who contribute to this effort, but I want to take a moment to integrate how these equitable student outcomes are supported by campus-wide efforts in the implementation of guided pathways, the integration of instruction and student services, and most importantly, in our work to empower students to realize their goals and aspirations. So we hope that all who are tuning in might be able to join via that virtual event next Tuesday at 10 a.m. As has been mentioned in the classified Senate reports, last week we had a lively, engaging, and well-attended mid-semester college flex day across the district. Here at BCC, from our opening presentation of the educational master plan sessions to sessions about guided pathways, it really was a day filled with learning and community building. There was a focus session for classified professionals to really engage in discussion and action planning for guided pathways work as as many of our classified colleagues are often the first point of contact for students. So I would like to express my sincerest gratitude to the Professional Development Committee, which has multi-constituents on there for planning such an amazing day. During our college roundtable this past week, we had a presentation on the annual program update templates. I know they're not very exciting, but they're very exciting to me and to us as a college, because these templates for instruction, student services, and administrative units are a product of our governance process. So the Integrated Planning Committee reviewing previous years and making intentional revisions. And so the template calls upon us to reflect on our goals, review disaggregated data, and intentionally reflect and revise our teaching and service delivery to contribute to equitable student outcomes. The APU is aligned with our budget development process taking place in our IPAR committee, Integrated Planning and Allocation of Resources Committee, and is also closely aligned with the overall district budget development model. And lastly, in closing, I would like to take a moment to express my thoughts and concerns regarding the anti-Semitic hate speech that has surfaced in our state these recent days. As a college and district that's committed to diversity, equity, inclusion, I'm proud to serve as the president of Berkeley City College, where building an inclusive community requires that people feel heard, seen, and appreciated for their presence. The racial reckoning that we have seen over the past years has called into discourse and into taking action on anti-Black, anti-immigrant, anti-Asian, anti-LGBTQ+, anti-Semitic hate speech, to name a few. I do not claim to be as culturally fluent as I would like to be, but I do want the Berkeley City College community to know that I'm committed to continue our work with faculty, classified professionals, and management colleagues to ensure that BCC is safe for those who walk through our doors. And my hope for our Peralta community is that we will continue to engage one another as colleagues, as neighbors, to see strengths, wisdom, and contributions of all, especially for those who may believe differently than we do. Students and the community are counting on us to engage in the very difficult dialogues needed to advance social and racial justice. That concludes my remarks for this evening. Thank you.
Good evening, President Abel Ariz, Vice President Delphine Polk, trustee members, Chancellor Jackson, colleagues, and members of community. I'd like to start with students. The Associated Students of College of Alameda, ASCOA, has a full slate of amazing student leaders. Several weeks ago, we heard the presentation from the president, Nathalie Myers. And after she finished the presentation, I had to readjust my own because she covered everything that happened at COA. I met her the other day at COA campus, and she was standing next to the Zoom, and I said, "You did an amazing job, President Myers." And the woman next to her, she said, "That's my daughter. I have two amazing daughters, and they're going to do much better than I did in life." I had tears in my eyes because it recognizes why we're here in education, to provide education so the next generation is better off than us. We send these kids to school so we can see them prosper. And as an empty nester, of course, those tears started rolling down my face. In addition to the President Myers, we have some amazing senator and Vice President Simeon Thompson, Karen Torres, Guilherme Santos, Demarcus Siamon, Auhiba Kurchech, and Junhao J. Ma. What is amazing about this student is that they have been in every single shared governance committees. They were there on Friday when we had the institutional effectiveness, a partnership initiative, and the PERT team coming and discussing. And it was really amazing to see them focus on their education and providing great ideas. So we are in safe hands with these leaders, focusing on their education and also supporting all the work that we do. So I would like to thank them. Focusing on people tonight and talking about leaders, I'd like to announce that COA went back into the future and brought one of the previous deans and administrators in the acting vice president of instruction role that I vacated temporarily as a result of Vice Chancellor Jones being at the district. I want to say a few words about committed leaders and leadership. Professor Jones has been serving Peralta Community College for 25 years as an English professor, as academic senate president, as a PFT rep, as an English chair, as a co-chair in every committee and shared governance committee that you can think about. He's committed. He believes in the power of education and what he brings from COA, that balanced approach that Angelica was talking about. In this world of polarized views, we as education institutions have a responsibility to model to our students, to each other, to our community, a better civic engagement. It is because it is us as an educator that can agree to disagree on issues. And this is what Professor Jones brings, that balanced approach. Let's sit and discuss. Let's think about another view. So I really do believe with anti-immigrants, anti-Black, anti-Semitic comments that are being made, we got to come together because we really care about education and we really care about communities. Are we perfect? Absolutely not. But in the process of discussing with each other, we can get things better. I'm talking about new people coming at COA. I'd like to emphasize Alejandro Gonzalez joining the CESO team with lots of experience. So this is a product of community college. He was born in South Central LA, went to community college there, then transferred to UC Berkeley on Chicano studies and sociology, and now is serving at CESO and Puente program. So we're really excited to have him. And part of what we do is also giving a second chance to people because life, it's strange sometimes, and it gives us that zigzag. So as part of Project Rebounds, the director for workforce systems, Stephanie Bradshaw at COA, and the career coach consultant, Kimari Williams, attended the Project Rebound event in September at California State University East Bay in Hayward. So this is a special admission and support program for formerly incarcerated students. And this is what we're working with to make sure that they have a second chance in life and in our society and integrating them. The Flex Day was a success. We had 86 people in person and 40 people join us remotely. We had an exciting and engaged discussion about where is the COA going to be headed in 5 years from now. Our West Ed consultants were listening in the sessions, but the session were for 2 hours. We talked about the mission, values, changing demographics, changing needs. We talk about campus climate, how do we support each other better. So it was a really successful event. And this concludes my report for tonight.
Good evening, Chancellor Jackson, President Napoli Abella-Reese, members of the governing board, and valued colleagues, community members, and of course, students. You know, when I give these reports, sometimes I find that some of my thunder gets, or the thunder I thought I had ends up getting borrowed, or it's not, the amount I had, was more than I thought, because often our student government representative says something that has the very same theme or the very same buzzword, as if you will, that I have at the beginning of my report typically. And that's good. That means that, you know, what the students are experiencing or what employees experiencing is there's alignment, and that's often a good thing. Well, tonight I'm happy to share my thunder with District Academic Senate President, and we're so proud, Professor Donald Moore, who used the word vibrant. And if I showed you my cue cards, you could see my first sentence says Laney has been a vibrant campus over the past few weeks. So I'm pleased that I'm not just the only one saying that. This past month on October 6th, I have a few events in the board report that are there, and I'll just touch on them briefly. On October 6th, with 9 CTE disciplines participating, 8 industry partners, all of whom are listed in your board report, and 7 high schools from the Oakland Unified School District. We had Manufacturing Day in the industry community as well as on the campus community at Laney, and it was a great event. On October 10th in our quad, we had Transfer Day, again, one of those vibrant events that took place. And then last week on the 20th, as part of Undocumented Students Week around our great state, we had a resource fair to support those students at Laney College. So lots of great things going on. But one thing I'd like to highlight that was not in your report this evening is that on October 14th and 15th, Laney was so pleased to host the Asian Pacific American Institute for Congressional Studies as they held a leadership institute in the bistro of our campus. I was very fortunate to attend and offer opening and kind of mid-seminar remarks. And I say fortunate because my name certainly would not have gotten top billing. I mean, we had just so many outstanding colleagues, starting with Dr. David Lee and Dr. Mildred Lewis, along with Dr. Marlon Hall and our support staff at Laney and colleagues, but also appearing with this group that came from Washington, D.C. to put on this institute were City Council member Sheng Tao, El Cerrito Mayor Gabriel Quinto, Dublin Mayor Sean Kumagai, Dublin Council member Sherry Hu, San Mateo Council member Amarance Lee, Daly City Council member Jocelyn Manuela, OUSD School Board member Dr. Amy Ng, and from the Oakland Vietnamese Chamber of Commerce, as well as our very own foundation board, Dr. Jennifer Tran. It was really just a great, inspiring event, and just anytime you mention leadership development, you got me, and they had me certainly on the 14th and 15th, and I think it was a great event. We've also been very busy at Laney supporting our community. As you all know, on August 30th, we had our mayoral debates. We hosted that. And then this past week on the 20th, we were happy to welcome Barbara Lee as Congressmember Barbara Lee of the 13th District, as she held a panel discussion, Reproductive Freedom at the Ballot Box. And on this very illustrious panel from the 37th District, there was also Congressmember Judy Chu. I think all of those events have been good practice for really a neat event that's coming up, and which is on November 10th, we will be hosting. As our district and our colleges ponder and consider our long-term goals and our long-term strategic plans, a charrette with our community, and Laney College is humbled and honored to be hosts for that. I don't often talk about internal things going on at Laney, but there are a couple things I would like to highlight. Dr. Garcia, I'll share some thunder with you on this as well. But as of midnight last night, our areas across our college submitted their program reviews. Looking at disaggregated data and what it means for student achievement, the outcomes that we all are chasing for our students, and are we reaching them? A lot of those things, and a lot of that planning that really has us walking the talk of our strategic goals and objectives at Laney in the service to our students. This was an endeavor that took place, and yes, even the president's office submits a program review, and I'd like to express my appreciation to Arlene Lontock and Clifton Coleman just for supporting my office as we did that work. In addition to that, I would like to commend our classified leadership. I'm so honored to be participating for the naming of the Renee Rivas Lounge. I had the privilege of working with Renee when I first began at Laney, and that's something that I would say our classified leadership was right on with this recommendation. Also, it was really great to see across our college just all of the work that went into Flex Day, and just the planning and the execution and the coming together that took place among classified professionals and faculty on this great day. And then finally, and I'll be sharing further details about this, but 2 Mondays ago, we were happy to also welcome our peer review team from the Institutional Effectiveness Partnership Institute as they did their visit at our college. So far, we've kind of followed the playbook steps of submitting and our project and everything, and we've completed that first visit. But now the interaction with that visiting team is really going to kick in. And I'm looking forward to the visit that they'll be having with us virtually in December. So I think exciting times are ahead. Speaking of exciting times, I guess there won't be a board report from Laney without some mention of guided pathways. And I'm so pleased to announce again that as we really tell our students about the pathways that they might want to be interested in and really having them informed and looking at areas of interest, we are going to have our jams that will kick off and take place November 1st through the 4th. We invite the entire Peralta community to come and attend these and learn about our 150 plus programs from all of our employees, even alumni and current students. There will be presentations, Q&A sessions, and so much more. They will take place twice each day from the 1st to the 4th, once at 3:30 for an hour and a half, and again for an hour and a half starting at 5 p.m. And just to reflect the changing times we're in, we will have them in multiple modalities, which means that people can join us in person, and we'll be glad to see them, or online or virtually, and we look forward to that as well. Also, and I'll be sharing this a bit more in our report at the next board meeting, but certainly always good to commend Professor Laney Gastis and our student journalists with the Citizen. They attended the Journalism Association of Community Colleges Northern California Conference on the 22nd. And from what I understand, they took home quite a bit of hardware, including the prestigious General Excellence Award. So really looking forward to kind of put pen to paper in my next board report and share more details with you. And then finally tonight, I'd like to tell another Laney success story. The President's Emergency Fund is something that, especially in these very trying times, will lend a hand to students that are in need. And I remember last year, or the last time I came and talked to you about this, I believe I said something that we had raised $30,000, and really most of it was through employee giving. Well, all the $30,000 was exhausted in scholarships to students. But I have a new balance to report to you. Again, greatly in part through employee giving at Laney College, $40,000. This is incredible. It's just a small piece of the fundraising we do, not only as Laney College, but all 4 colleges and the Peralta Colleges Foundation, and just something to absolutely be celebrated. And I just as the president of Laney College, to the employees of the Laney community, from the bottom of my heart, I say thank you. This concludes my report.
So good evening, Board of Trustees, Chancellor, colleagues, and community. This evening, I fully intended to share some good news from Merritt College. I enjoy being able to give you all good news like the other presidents. So my intention was to talk about our transfer day, where we had 113 students attend the event and 40 different colleges representing. I intended to talk about the job fair that we had with our CIS and computer sciences team, where we had 11 employers come to campus, and Bubba Paris for the San Francisco 49ers was our keynote speaker. It was a great event. Or even talk about the women, the Black Panther event that Trustee Hogan mentioned earlier, that was organized by Siri Brown. But unfortunately, for the 3rd time in 4 months, I have the unenviable duty to share bad news. And that is this morning, we lost someone very near and dear to the people at Merritt College. Jennifer Briffa, who is a faculty member. I can't say was, it's kind of hard. I can't even say it in the past tense. Who was a faculty member in child development, passed away this morning. She was again, respected and admired many of her former students, our Merritt employees. And she was just a giant on our campus. I was struggling with what to say. So the dean, Chris Foster, wrote something that I wanted to share with you all that I think encapsulates who Jenny is. So just kind of bear with me. Affectionately called Jenny by those who knew her well, she was a woman of many talents with the ability to open her heart and embrace people from all walks of life, and carried a strong presence that commanded respect. At the core were her concerns for the children, their development, their education, and the provision of services to them. Jenny was 4 years of age when she came with her family from Peru, settled in San Francisco. She met her husband, her future husband, Silvio Briffa, at a dance company where they danced together for many years. They later married and parented 2 sons. But when she decided to leave dance, she knew she wanted to work with children. And that's when she applied to Merritt College, where she earned her AA in child development in 1966. Jenny was affiliated with this college for 56 years. She was encouraged by Merritt faculty and staff to continue her education, so she went on to Hunter College in New York, where she earned a bachelor's and master's degree in early childhood education. She returned to Merritt College as a part-time professor and became a full-time tenured faculty member in 2017. She designed non-credit and Spanish language development courses. She engaged in partnerships with ECE community agencies and learning communities with wraparound services for adults. She was the department chair. She was the college coordinator for both the Child Development Training Consortium and the Early Childhood Mentor Program. She was a senator on the Academic Senate, and she was instrumental in influencing the decision for Merritt to open up classes and services at the Lau Center. She also worked with a group of Latinx faculty and staff to create the first Latinx graduation, as well as being a founding member of PACLA. Her contributions to Merritt College and the community are without end, and we will miss her, a woman who respected and promoted sisterhood among all women. She was loved and supported by her family, and she passed away this morning, surrounded by family and friends. So that concludes my report. I just, wanted to, end the meeting in her honor, if that's okay, just to show that we love and miss her.
Thank you, President Johnson. We will do that.
Thank you. Thank you, Presidents. I usually just let the president speak and remain silent because I really think it's important for them to sunshine what they're doing on the campuses, because they're the ones that are there directly interfacing with our students. But there's been many comments tonight and at previous board meetings regarding residency. And these comments are made in a public forum, therefore errors of fact cannot be addressed. So tonight I'd like to provide some facts before I turn it back over to the board vice president. And I feel it's incumbent upon me to do so, to let you know these facts. At the end of September 2022, we had approximately 1,948 employees. I say approximately because that number changes as people tender their resignations, get new jobs, get onboarded, etc. But at the end of September 2022, it was 1948. Of that number, 40% of our employees reside outside of our service area, a total of 780 employees. 30 of those employees reside outside of the state. 2 are administrators, 9 are classified professionals, and 19 are faculty. And although we continue to make progress in diversity, equity, and inclusion, we are not unaware of the challenges this entails. We continue to make progress by establishing specific standards that can be measured and benchmarked, and that we can objectively determine our progress. It really has nothing to do with residency. However, I believe that the board established the small business and local enterprises as an aspirational goal. We are making progress, but I agree with the comments that part of our ongoing goal of transparency is to identify what we do, how we do it, and how we can honestly and respectful of each other move forward. We may not always agree. If something is wrong, let's change it. If our aspirational goals need to be made and codified into measurable goals that can be benchmarked, then we should do so. But we are currently under the policies that guide us until those are changed. So I wanted to put that out as a fact. They can be checked, but I wanted the board to understand and the public to understand that we don't have to be adversaries to move forward. We can work together, and we continue to do so as we make progress toward meeting the goals of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you all. Let's move over to our presentations. 5.1, CARES HERF Funds Report. Dr. Jones.
Yes. Can you bring that up, Sasha? Thank you very much for bringing that up, Sasha. Good evening, President Reese, Chancellor Jackson, trustees, community members. It's my pleasure to provide this HERF presentation along with the college president. First, I would like to thank ABC Ahmed and our finance team for their work on this presentation. I really appreciate their assistance and support. Next slide, please. Early this year, the Department of Education extended the performance period for all open grants under HERF. The announcement indicated that the performance period for all grants with a balance in excess of $1,000 would be extended to June 30th, 2023. This provides some additional time to spend the resources that have been allocated. I'm pleased to share with you that it is my sincere belief that the Peralta Community Colleges are well on their way of expending the resources that we have received. Next slide, please. As you may recall, the Peralta Community Colleges received approximately $65.1 million. $13.2 million was allocated to Merritt, $27.2 to Laney, $9.7 to College of Alameda, and $14.4 to BCC, and $637,000 to the district. Thinking of these resources, we should characterize them as having been allocated in two broad buckets. The first of which is direct support for students or direct aid to students. The other bucket is institutional resources. There were restrictions to both, the most restricted being the amount for direct to students. Those resources could only be used for supporting students. The institutional, however, having restrictions, had a broader array of uses that could be allowed under the federal guidelines. So let's talk about how our colleges and our district has used some of those resources. Some of the uses of these resources for our district has been to provide stipends for faculty and classified staff who converted courses to online, came to campus during the height of the pandemic to provide critical services. We provided supplies, materials, largely in the form of personal protective equipment and the like, computing equipment to be able to effectively do work remotely and to learn remotely. We also have the ability to recoup losses as a result of revenues not earned as a result of certain services that may have been sheltered during the pandemic, like parking, or reduced like revenues from our bookstore or food services that we did not receive because of reduction in students on our campuses and similar kinds of reductions. Also, we had the ability to and decided to use part of these resources to reduce the amount of student debt for those students who were enrolled in classes during certain years during the course of the pandemic. And like other grants, we had the ability to charge and to claim an indirect. And we used 10%, a very, very modest amount in support of the administrative work necessary to administer this grant. And by federal law, the vast majority of the resources went to our students. The primary purpose for receiving the aid and support. Additionally, we were able to claim resources for lost revenues in the form of non-resident tuition from students that would normally pay us tuition and fees outside of our boundaries, international students and students that would attend our institution out of the state. So these expenditures also include the nearly $4 million that I spoke about last month with regard to the error in revenue. These figures include those. So let's talk about the numbers briefly. So in the category of compensation for our folks, we spent about $6.9 million in that area. I mean, you can see the distribution across the colleges. They vary based on the plans of the institution as well as the resources that each of the colleges had. And the plans, my colleagues will share those information momentarily. When it comes to the other operating expenditures, we spent about $13.3 million, $2 million for lost revenues. Student debt wipeout was $3.37 million, and indirect for two applications of 10% was $3.147 million, and lost revenues with student aid of $22.28 million and lost revenues of $1.7 million. So in total, we have expended about 83% of the resources for our HERF funding. 94% has been expended by Merritt College, 72.68 by Laney College, 91.42 by College of Alameda, and 87.04 for Berkeley City College, and 95.5% by the district office. Next slide, please. In addition to our main HERF funding that we got, we also got, resources for our minority serving institutions. We received nearly $2 million, $1.99 million total. $370,000 for Merritt, $103.77 thousand for Laney, $612.6 thousand for College of Alameda, and $896.8 million for Berkeley City College. And most of these resources went directly to benefiting students. From a percentage basis, BCC has expended 32.3%, College of Alameda 95.6%, Laney 50.43%, and Merritt 10.3%, and with a grand total of about $48.6 million. Percentages. So what I'd like to do now is turn it over to my colleague, President Garcia, who will share with you BCC's plans related to our HERF spending.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jones. In the attempt to keep it brief, you're going to hear from each of the college presidents. Many of the components that Dr. Johnson has already shared are outlined here on this slide. One of the biggest points that I do want to connect to here is that the work that we were able to do, or the funding that we were able to afford for the Fall is Free campaign at BCC, was largely supported by HERF institutional funds. That is something that allowed for us to support students, address enrollment and campus fee, and will likely support any and all spring retention efforts for persistence that we have for spring 2023. Aside from, you can see the outline of all the different components that were used to support students. I want to take one opportunity here to highlight two things. One is increasing the level of accessibility support to instructors, as many were working both at the beginning but even ongoing towards improving and addressing accessibility issues in online courses. So we are really proud that we were able to do that and provide as much support as necessary. And the other that I want to highlight is the academic career and mental health counseling with students, just basic needs, the stressors, not just the life stressors of our community members, but that was impacted by COVID-19 and the pandemic. We saw a greater need to augment the supports in academic career and mental health counseling. And so these funds afforded us the opportunity to get some additional supports for students. I believe with that, what you're going to see in some of the funds remaining, the MSI is the one that Berkeley City College still has quite a bit. That is supporting a lot of our persistence efforts that's going to be happening in spring to alleviate financial challenges for students, especially those that for whom the MSI, Minority Serving Institution funds, are designed to support. So namely our low income, predominantly first generation and predominantly BIPOC community. Thank you so much. That is the update from Berkeley City College.
Without being repetitive, because some of these categories are the same, I'll focus on some additional elements for COA, starting with students. We have distributed a significant amount of MSI funds throughout the COVID years. And this fall semester, we provided a $500 COA Believes in You cash assistance to all the students to mitigate some of the affordability with the college, high gasoline prices, and invite them back to college with wraparound services. Also, during the COVID years and currently, we spend significant amount of money to provide embedded tutors to online classes and all the Canvas shell. And I benefited as a faculty from some of those embedded tutors, because what better way to keep everybody engaged in these classes other than having embedded tutors in every course. And our Learning Resource Center did a fantastic job of training the tutors to be there on Zoom, to be in Canvas, to support students through this tough journey of converting 100% online. So we also spend a lot of money in creating our poker program, and we are poker certified from CBC OEI. That will allow us provide more online courses open to the entire California and also the nation, high quality courses that will enable students to access it from everywhere. Technology support also to support online teaching, technology support for all the staff to work remotely. Another thing is allowed us to provide curbside assistance and library resources, extend our digital library database. So while we are in our homes during the COVID era, the library kept working, and students and faculty and staff could have access to that. So a lot of that money was spent in upgrading facilities to align with COVID compliance regulation, so that we could return back to campus and feel comfortable and not worried. And the other, funded COVID tracers and faculty stipends to support them from all the time and effort that they put forward to convert all the courses online. And we also provided a big chunk in professional development money so the faculty could take online courses, high quality CBC OEI online courses, so they could improve the quality of, they can learn first in online learning and improve the quality and provide equitable online education through improving accessibility. So those are some of the minor details, how the money was spent at COA.
Okay, I see a green slide coming, so I think it must be my turn. You think about grant funds, monies that don't last forever, are not replenished every year. And you look at those and you say, how can I make a mark? How can I make an impact? How can I have outcomes that are long lasting? And among the four of us with our colleges and the things we did this fall, we took these monies and we did that. And we did it in distinctive ways, and we did it in ways that serve our communities. And I guess it does get back to outcomes. Well, what happened? Well, at Laney College, I know you've heard the report from me. We have 15% more students. That's right, an increased, rising enrollment compared to a year ago. FTES, that comes out to 10% more. And are we serving our communities? Are we serving our students? Well, we have 8.5 more API students than we did a year ago at this time. 22% more Latinx students than we did a year ago at this time. 33% more African-American students than we did at this time. But one of the big goals of this was to increase, using these HERF dollars in part, to increase awareness about financial aid and applying for financial aid. And then again, you ask that question, did you make a dent there? Did you have an impact? At Laney College, 1,813 more students applied for financial aid than they did a year ago, 12% more. So I'd like to think just at least to some degree we did, and we've started a journey there. So how have we been using these funds? I guess that's the story and that's the impact, but certainly there have been some other things and my colleagues have touched on them. We've looked at direct aid grants to students. Many of the things under Fall is Free that are listed were things we either were already doing or had done before as well. Eliminating student debt, making our learning environment safe through PPE purchases, professional development in distance education and other areas. And really a number of those things, but also again, with an eye towards safety, during one of the most trying times for community colleges that had, face-to-face offerings that were hard to convert. We funded a number of sections so that we could cap them at lower numbers for the labs. And we took steps like that because our community was saying they needed students for the workforce. Our students were saying we need classes. So these were some of the things that we did at Laney to support using this valued resource of funding. Thank you.
Okay. One of the things about going last is a lot of times people have already said what you wanted to say. So I'll just be very brief. You've heard from the other colleges. Merritt College is doing pretty much many of the same things in terms of our expenditures. One thing I do want to call attention to, I'm very proud of the fact of the being able to use our HERF funding to make the direct payments to students as part of our Fall is Free campaign. We were close to, at last check, close to about $800,000 in direct student payments. So we're excited about that. We continue to provide the free breakfast every morning. We're up to about doing 400 of those a week. And I just do want to point out really quickly that some of the funds that have not been expended for the MSI portion, we have about $300,000. We're looking forward to applying those funds to our spring efforts. So I'll just leave it there. If you have any questions, I think now is the time to go to Vice Chancellor Jones on the next slide.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you, Dr. Johnson. I appreciate that. A couple of concluding remarks, and then I'll happily take questions along with my colleagues. So the first thing that I would say is we are definitely on track to expend all of our HERF funding in time for the deadline. So we are working very diligently and very hard. My goal is to have us finish just a little bit ahead of the deadline to give us some wiggle room. And then the other thing that I would want to indicate as a refresher so that you can recall that we use her funding to cover about $4 million to help solve the issue with the revenues from last time. I think what you can see from this presentation is, number one, that we are really focused on using these resources to benefit students, and the vast majority of the resources have gone either directly or indirectly in terms of supporting students, and particularly students with the greatest need. So thank you very much for your time this evening, and we will be happy to answer any questions. I see your hand raised, President Reese.
Hi, Dr. Jones. Thank you, Dr. Jones, and thank you, Presidents, for this presentation. You pretty much answered what my question was. So we're looking at, as of October 21, 2022, and the expenditures at that particular point, but that does not yet include, or I don't see reflected in it, the amount that we're using for the $11 million, right?
It does. It does include that $4 million. Yes, ma'am, it does.
Oh, it does?
It does. Yes, it does.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure exactly in the line item or the allocations where that was.
Two places. One is in the non-resident line item. That's the one, and then also in the indirect line item. So it's included in those two line items.
Great, thank
I
you.
have to
And
put my
then,
glasses back on so I can see it, but
and I also have to put my glasses back on to be able to see this now. But that's okay because I can go back to my laptop and I can actually see it a little bit more
yes,
magnified. And
so
then
it's in
could
the
you just
indirect
also-
costs, and then also in,
Okay.
if you go down, it says lost revenue, non-resident student. So it's in those line items there.
And if you could just articulate once again, I know you did at the very beginning, but there are, I've heard naysayers out there talk about this, and I just want us to affirm, confirm, and address again that that we have all throughout, and we continue to, and particularly with the $4 million, we are within the parameters of what those funds should be used for.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am. So as an indication, if you think about the 4 million, those line items are the same as that we've been using. For example, if you had seen a previous report, lost revenues. Well, we use lost revenues from, so for example, Laney used and applied lost revenue for some of the losses that it had for losses in its food service operation or parking, and COA, same thing for parking, and for our bookstore, because we didn't get those revenues because of the pandemic. And so we apply that. So it's the same allowance. This time we did it for the loss of students of the non-resident. And so it was absolutely within the federal guidelines for how those resources could be used. And similarly, we had a certain amount of indirect. We just increased that for another year to increase that amount to provide with the resources. So everything that we've done with these resources have been allowed by the federal government. There was only one minor issue that occurred last year, and it was to the tune of like $8,300 of an expense that was not allowable.
And that came out in our audit report that we presented in March of this year. And it was, like Dr. Jones said, a very significant amount. Before I turn it back over to, Vice President Delphine Polk, I do have some good news that I'd like to share with everyone. As you know, we got our preliminary offering statement completed, and we let out our second issuance of bonds today. And I want to just read you a few highlights of the bond sale. This was working with our strategy team of Barclay, Siebert, Backstrom, and our underwriters, Oric. So this morning, the district sold 151.8 million in bonds at an aggregate interest rate of 4.76. There were 38 different investors that placed orders for the district's transactions, including Vanguard, First Republic Bank, and BlackRock. 120 million of bonds will allow the district facilities program to move forward. We hope that the money combined with funds still on hand will fund projects over the next 2 years, and they will. 31.8 million of bonds will be refinanced to our existing bonds, saving local taxpayers more than $1.5 million. The bond sale process was successful in a number of ways, including from a rating standpoint. The district bonds were taken off negative outlook by both Standard & Poor's and Fitch, and it was the first positive movement in the district's bond ratings since May of 2013. Members of the financing team will be making a presentation on the process at an upcoming board meeting, but this is indeed good news, and I wanted to share it with the board. Since we were talking about money and the use of CARES funds, I thought it would be appropriate to let you know that this is indeed a great day for us. So thank you for allowing me to do that. And if there's any questions to the presidents or to Dr. Jones regarding the presentation on CARES and HER funds, please, we're here to help you to understand if there's any questions and to answer anything that may still be vague or you just need more clarity on. If
Can I
not,
just
I'll
make one
turn
more
it back.
statement?
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Can I just make one more statement? Thank you for that. That is fantastic news. And I have to say, it is yet one more evidence, one more tangible, concrete, substantial evidence that this district has and is moving forward. So thank you for that piece of information.
Any other questions for the team? If not, I'll turn it back over to, I think, Vice President Delphine Polk.
Yes, thank you very much for all of your work. Let's go ahead and move to 5.2. Director Thomas, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Hello, everyone. Good evening. All right. Good evening, everyone. President Reese, Dr. Jackson, members of the board, and guests. Before I begin my presentation, I just would like to say thank you to Executive Mark Johnson. Me and Mark Johnson spent a lot of time writing a student handbook, rewriting the student handbook, and also taking time to recreate the district public safety website. So woohoo, we're really happy about that. And I thank Executive Director Mark Johnson and his staff for allowing me to update some of this information in clarity. Next slide. All right, how it all started. The Clary Act was named after Jean Clary, who was murdered in her dorm room by a fellow student on April 5th, 1986. Her parents championed the Jean Clary disclosure of the Campus Security Policy and Crime Statistics Act in her memory, which is now known as the ASR report for 2022, which the board has in their package and their dockets of all other numbers pertaining to Clary. So how do we get to Clary and how is this information recorded? How is it looked at? Next slide. Here is the basis of the Clary Act. And I just really wanted to highlight some of the things here on the basis of the Clary Act, looking at from number 2, the annual security report, which is the ASR report, which you have in front of you. Just below that is the annual crime statistic data collection and survey, which we use to captivate all of the numbers, which you see on your Clary packet. And also the number 1 thing is timely alerts and notifications, which is something that we send out to our stakeholders regarding incidents that occur on our campus district-wide, and disseminate those messages to those folks who are in the academy so that we cover our notifications. And also just looking at some of the other bullet points, as you see down there, crime logs, missing student notifications, and also campus sexual assault prevention and response. These are some of the things that we've also added to the website that will match up in hand with public safety for resourceful information for our students, and also if someone is victimized of a crime, where they can find important numbers, and also Clary information pertaining to our website. Next slide. Here is, when you look at Clary, this is some of the things that define Clary when we look at reportable incidents. And a lot of time when we look at reportable incidents, we look at where crime actually occurred. And as you can see in Campus 1, it's any building or property owned or controlled by institution with the same reasonable contiguous geographic area used in the institution. And a lot of times, this is how we get our numbers, and we notate our numbers pertaining to Clary. If you look at Campus 2, it talks about, again, any building or property within reason. And that is jurisdictions around the campus, off-site locations, and so on, where crime has occurred at those locations, which is also included in our Clary report. Next slide. Here is just a breakdown on how we look at the 4 categories of crime when we look in a Clary, and what does it mean on Clary? And so down below, if you look at, I've divided the 4 categories of crime, and one of them is criminal offenses. As you will see in some of the reports and some of the numbers in the Clary report, also hate crimes that occur, and also BWA offenses. And a lot of these things are broken down into the 24 categories of Clary. And you'll see in the next box, arrests and referrals for disciplinary action. And here is where we've used a holistic model where sometimes some of these issues are not police issues. They're student conduct issues. So we've used number 4 box to help create a process that things that are not police matters that we've included dean of students and also our stakeholders that make the decisions regarding our students' disciplinary actions. Next slide. Here is a 3-year makeup of Clary. These stats were recorded by the Alameda County Sheriffs and also Marina Security. And as you look at some of the data, you will start to see just a little bit of the numbers increase. And on my next page, I will highlight and show kind of where the numbers are and where we are as far as pertaining to Clary. Sasha, next slide. Here is all of the colleges district-wide. And as you can see, we're looking at the numbers from 2020 to 2021, and you can see just a slight increase in crime. When we look at Berkeley as opposed to 2021, we're slightly up just a little bit. When we look at auto theft, we're slightly up a little bit, and look at arson, we're slightly up a little bit. But these are the numbers that kind of poked out to me when we looking at the Clary. And moving forward, our next slide will kind of give us an idea of what we're doing to kind of find a solution to the numbers that you're seeing. Next slide. So before I get into this picture here, I just want to thank DGS, BC Smith, and the engineers, also the director of facilities over at Laney for helping me with this task. When we visited the board about a year ago, we talked about some of the things that really stood out that we identified within our campuses, and Laney being in question that campus. One of the things was building parking lots and overhangs. And as you can see in the picture, that it is really lit up. And I got a chance to really walk the campus. And while I was walking the campus, I just captivated some pictures because I was walking by myself and I just wanted to see the lights and wanted to see the replacement of the lights. So I was really, really happy to really walk and really see the difference now under some of the overhangs in some of our campuses over at Laney. So I thank the staff for helping us accomplish this task. And this is just a picture that highlights the A Breezeway just below the forum. And then the other picture on the far left just highlights the outside skirts of Laney College, where the lights previously were not lit and it was very, very dark. So I'm very happy to see that. Next slide. Just below, continuing at Laney, as you can see, the lights are really light and bright. And we really are really happy about this. This is the first picture on the left side is the illustration of lights that go straight to the quad of Laney, and you come out right in front of the cafeteria. And just below to the picture to the right is also the pictures that lead on the breezeway as the entrance to Laney going towards Financial Aid. So this now is really bright. And it feels safe as you walk Laney at night. Next slide. Well, with future initiatives, our Holistic Safety and Security and Wellness Advisory Committee, we're seeking recommendations. Currently, that advisory committee hasn't stood up yet, but we're waiting to get that committee stood up and get those meetings going forward. Our camera update is still progressing, and we are still working on the cameras, still waiting for supplies for different cameras to come in. And as we complete that task, we will update the board on a progression and completion of that project. We are still moving forward with the planned implementation of our national intervention recommendations, which is our keyless entry doors. We feel that when you look at the incidents from 2020, 2021, we feel that this would cut down on such incidents and reduce incidents. And so, as you can see, such as arson and burglary notated on the previous slides, it's up a little bit. And so we think that having keyless entry doors will cut down on the keys and the logistical part of the keys, which we're dealing with currently. Employee badging. We feel that it's recommended to decrease the possibility of unwanted persons on our campus so that we can tell who actually not only works here from a customer service standpoint. I want to harp on this just for a minute. When you look at from a service standpoint for our students, one of the things that I like to look at is identifying who is an employee and who isn't, who is a student worker and who is not. And one of the things that you'll find is you're unable to tell. And one of the things is because of employee badging. And I think this is a issue where anyone can walk behind a desk, anyone can go anywhere. And one of the things that when the person is behind the desk, they're not wearing a badge. So from a service standpoint, even from a student, we need to know who we can ask for help. So I think employee badging really, really serves a purpose, not only that we know who people are, but also from a customer service standpoint, when we're looking for help in a particular area of a building, and we may be lost. We want to be able to identify our workers from student workers. And we think that badging would help us with this process. Ooh, that's a little bit, Sasha. And I just want to say, with our Clarity Act presentation, I want to thank all of the campus presidents that I work with closely every day. We talk about how to keep our campuses safe, intervention methods on how to move crime and manage crime. As I always say, crime sometimes cannot be solved, but it can be managed. And I think that what we're doing at Peralta with our new vision, we're managing crime and we're trying to provide an adequate, safe place for our students and faculty. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Director Thomas. Do we have any questions? Nikki, go ahead. Trustee Gonzalez-Wynn.
Thank you for the report. It's always important to get a current Clery Act update. I'm wondering, Director Thomas, if you can talk in more detail about what progress has been made moving forward with a district-wide integrated safety and wellness plan. Has the committee met? What kind of participation are you getting? What are the initiatives? How are you involving our faculty, staff, and students in the process of rethinking how we do community safety so that it's more than just crime prevention, which of course is critical, but that it's also a more proactive, affirmative enhancement of the culture of safety, the culture of inclusion, where there's real buy-in across the, on the ground level. How is that process going?
Well, one thing I can say, Trustee, is we have started our training presentations that we have reached out to the colleges and been at some of the colleges, Alameda, Laney, really looking for a facilitation environment with our student engaging with our students, really having a student base. And that's, a collaborative effort of working on partnerships. And I think, with our program, we've been able to do that. It's a new program. And I think it fosters communication through collaborative efforts with our student-based programs, student life, our mental health specialists on our campuses, being able to utilize the holistic model, meaning that a lot of times when you look at some of the issues on the campuses, again, it's not always a police issue. And so I think that how we utilize our processes in involving the folks of the dean of students and involving our mental health specialists really serves of evidence-based to a holistic method of what we're doing to not only help our students, but also be able to provide resources for our students that are in dire need of these resources. And I think that it takes time. And I think that within time, we'll be able to address with our shared governance committee as we stand it up, we'll be able to address some of the mental health issues and some of the things that have been on the agenda for quite some time that we feel that is an urgent need. But we want the buy-in from everyone. And I think that's the main thing, is getting the buy-in from all of our shared governance committees, and also being able to bring those recommendations to the chancellor for everyone to review.
I guess what I'm wondering, and maybe this is a question directly to the chancellor. So I'll ask the chancellor, I guess, directly. When is our committee scheduled to meet? Have all appointments been made? And if not, what's holding us up? Here we are all the way almost to November. We've had quite a while now.
Yes, we have. Yes,
and I'm
we have.
wondering if you can just update us on
Sure.
what progress is being made and what's holding us up if we're not making progress.
We have not gotten nominations. The notice, well, let me just give you a little bit of background real quickly, because I know the time is starting to, kind of creep on us. I started this progress in August of last year, and it took from August until March to get a committee structure. So September, October, November, December, January, February, March, took 7 months to get a structure, not to get appointments, a structure. That happened in March. We had 2 months, April, May. I got no appointments during that period of time, even though it was adopted by PGC. There were no appointments. So we started up this year. I was told, everybody's leaving for the summer. We'll start up in the fall. So it came up when we had our PBIM, which was put off, if you recall, because of some of the things that we had with the budget. And we used the time that we were going to have the PBIM meeting for me to urge people again to make the announcements or make the appointments. It isn't me that makes the appointments. I get recommendations from our shared governance. So if I don't get recommendations, I can't make appointments. And until I get appointments, we can't set up a meeting because we don't know what time people are available. So that's what's been the holdup. So we sent out an announcement because someone said, well, Chancellor, you haven't sent out an announcement. I said, I didn't know I had to. We all voted on it and it said who made the appointments. So we sent out an announcement. So that's where we are right now, is waiting to get those appointments. The only appointment that I've received thus far has been from the safety committee at Laney College. That's it. So.
Well,
we're still doing that with all the other things that we're doing. And I need a little help and a little support from our shared governance bodies to move forward with their appointments so we could stand up the committee.
I'm just on the policy side of this. I'm not on the operations side, but I will say, I personally am very disappointed that we're not making progress. I only have you, Chancellor, to look to. I have no control of anyone else. I don't even have control over you, but I
yes,
am asking. Well, no, I alone. I'm just one. I have my preferences, and my position.
I will tell you, Trustee Ewing, we are making progress. The things that you saw in the report, that the 120-page report that was presented, the webpage that's out there, the changes in the lighting, the upgrade and moving forward with the keyless entry and the badging, that's progress. The only thing that I would say has been the shared governance committee, but we have safety committees on campus. And so both, I think, Acting Vice Chancellor Etheria Smith in facilities, as well as Director Thomas, have been meeting with those committees, as he just reported. So it has not been that there has been no involvement, and he's been sitting, or we've been sitting in a crystal ball over at the district office. It's just that the committee hasn't moved forward. So we're using the other mechanisms that are there, which is the health and safety and the wellness committees, and doing training on campus. I believe in the report, it shows that after we had the shooting in Uvalde in Texas, there was a request from our child development centers to get training. Director Thomas went out and provided that training to them. So the committee isn't there, but the committee isn't the be all end all of all of the operations that take place. And so I defer to my colleagues to please get those nominations in, but we can't move forward until we do with a committee, because if I make direct appointments, then I'll be accused of not providing the opportunity for the shared governance bodies to appoint their individuals for consideration. So,
I understand there are many things that are happening on the campuses that require immediate direct attention. And so we can't focus everything on the rebuilding and a reimagining. At the same time, the board has made it very clear what our direction is. And I'll just speak for myself. I'm looking for better results. And what I've heard today is a good Clery Act report. Thank you. And other enhancements on our safety program. Thank you. So not to detract from those, but we're on the cutting edge of trying to do something very different. And that's going to take a level of leadership that I personally am not seeing yet.
Well,
and
Trustee Ewing, I beg to differ for you on that. I'm sorry, I have to interrupt. I would ask each board member to contact a faculty representative or a faculty leader or a SEIU leader and ask them to make nominations.
If you really want me to mess on that level of detail, I will, but I don't think that's my job. I don't think that's my job.
Obviously, I have not been able to get them to do it because the notices have gone out. So yes, I am asking for assistance on this.
Well, why don't you give me a call and I'll have that conversation, but I think that's not my lane, frankly. And I'm reluctant to step out of my lane and the policy side and get in on the operations and start messing with the details of who's making what appointments.
I do understand that, but when you call into question leadership, I don't think that's policy.
I'm looking at results and I'm not seeing the results yet.
Help
so
me.
I'll leave it alone.
Help me.
And
help me.
Chancellor, why don't we talk offline and not carry out this conversation in public? I'll just leave my comments as they were. Thank you so much. And look, I don't mean to detract from anybody's work. I understand we're in a crazy situation. We're coming off a pandemic, trying to reopen campuses. There's all craziness everywhere. And if we're going to make progress on this, it's going to take something different than we've been doing. I don't know what that is. That's not my lane. Thank you.
Do we have any other questions, comments?
I see no hands raised.
Okay, thank you very much, Director Thomas. We appreciate your work. I know that we are moving on to the consent calendar. Shall we move to accept to vote on the consent calendar other than 8.1, which I believe got pulled?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, colleagues.
Point of clarification.
Yes,
I had requested that we have 2 guests with us. And I had asked in advance if they could, even though they were on the consent agenda, make their presentations regarding our advocacy, both at the state level and at the federal level.
Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay. I think the first person would be Rick Spees, who's in Washington and has a 3-hour difference. So I would ask Rick if you could make the presentation for Ackerman. And Rick was so gracious to give an orientation to our students who went back for the legislative advocacy and legislative caucus, the 51st. And so, Rick, if you would go, and then I will turn it over to Mark McDonald to give the statewide overview.
Thank you very much, Chancellor. President Reese and trustees, Chancellor, and all the senior staff, I want to thank you very much for the opportunity to talk to you today. I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm joined by my partner, Jane Sargent, who is at Ackerman with me. We have been representing Peralta for almost 20 years. And for me, it's a labor of love. I grew up in Oakland and actually started my career, my college career at Merritt College. So I go back a long way. So, but as I said, we've had a long relationship with Peralta. I think it has worked well for both sides. It's very interactive. We get out there a couple times a year, and we like to talk to everybody. And but let me give us a summary of what we're doing. I'm going to have Jane talk about the grants and earmarks. So we could change the first slide. Dasha, thanks.
Good evening, everyone. We just wanted to give you a highlight of some of the work we've done on behalf of Peralta over the years. For those of you who aren't familiar with the work we've been doing. First is the earmark we secured in FY 2022 for $500,000 for Peralta's cybersecurity program. That earmark was through the congressional appropriations process with Senator Dianne Feinstein's support, and the money will come through the Department of Education. We've also worked with Peralta to secure federal grants, and this includes a nearly $15 million grant from the Department of Labor through their Trade Adjustment Assistance and Community College Career Training Program for Regional Engineering, Manufacturing, and Logistics Workforce Initiative. And we worked with Congresswoman Lee's office, who arranged a conference call with interested stakeholders, and then we worked to come up with an idea for the grant with the college and worked to get congressional support for the application that was submitted and ultimately awarded funding. Another federal grant we worked with Peralta on was a $3 million Economic Development Administration grant to expand and modernize the College of Alameda's aviation maintenance technology program facilities. That grant came about after we arranged meetings with the trustees to meet with EDA officials here in DC, and also for an EDA rep to visit Peralta, discuss possible projects that the colleges had, and those discussions led to a grant application that was ultimately awarded funding. And then we also wanted to mention there has been a hiatus in earmarks for a long time. We're back into them now, but previously when earmarks were allowed, we helped the college secure nearly $1 million in earmarks for a number of projects related to nursing program, public safety, and other workforce training programs. So that's just a brief overview. Next slide, please.
So in addition to the money issues, which we have been involved in, there's been a lot of policy leadership for Peralta. And I think it's fair to say that Peralta is a community college that really punches above its weight. I mean, if you talk about community colleges, as you know, there's thousands in the country, but there's only a couple that really get noticed in Washington. And of course, you've got the one here in Northern Virginia, where the vice president's wife teaches, and a couple others. But Peralta is really a real leader in a whole lot of areas, and that's been because of a lot of reasons. One is that we have a great congresswoman, we have 2 great senators, we've had some interesting projects. Peralta has been flexible to not just say it's my way or the highway, but to work with the agencies and to work with the Congress to come up with really well thought out plans. And then there's performance. At the end of the day, we wouldn't have gotten the EDA grant if we hadn't performed well on the Trade Adjustment Assistance grant. And if you don't do a good job with the money that you get, these are discretionary grants. And the next time the agency goes out to give us some money, if you did a mediocre job on the first one, you're not going to get a second one. And we keep getting them. So I think it's a reflection on, it's a team, and it's been a great team all along, including when the chancellor was at the College of Alameda and we got the Trade Adjustment Assistance grant. So it's been a team effort for a long time. But some of the policy leaderships that we've done, we were able to get Trustee Withrow to testify in front of the House Foreign Veterans Affairs Committee to talk about veterans issues. I thought it was a very productive. Since that time, we've been back a couple of times, and every time we go back between Trustee Withrow and the Chancellor, we've had some very good conversations with both the House and the Senate Veterans Affairs Committees to talk about veteran programs. We took a leadership role on restoring Pell Grant eligibility for the ability to benefit students. This was something that was taken away by Congress in 2012. And because of the Peralta's Maximum Achievement Program, which is a very successful program, actually Secretary Duncan came out and saw it and spent some time with it. We were able to convince the Congress to restore Pell Grant eligibility for ability to benefit students. We have working relationships with a number of congressional committees. The list is there: the House and Senate Veterans Affairs, the Senate Education, Labor, and Pensions, the House Education and Labor Committee. Again, when in the past, before COVID, trustees came out every year, twice, once in the February, when the trade associations for community colleges had their annual meetings, and then again in September when the Congressional Black Caucus had their meetings, and we were able to set up a lot of very productive meetings with members of Congress. And of course, again, I cannot stress how good the working relationship with Congresswoman Lee. She really considers Peralta one of her babies, and we do a lot with her. Next paragraph, next slide, please. In addition to the Congress, we've also been very active working with federal agencies. Again, when the trustees are out here, we've had meetings with the Department of Education. We've had meetings with the Department of Labor. We've had meetings with Homeland Security, Veterans Affairs, Health and Human Services, even the Department of Agriculture. We've discussed our programs. We've pointed out what we do, the strengths we bring to the table. And later on, when we go in and ask for grants, we've kind of set the table to get them. The other thing that we did, we've been very active, this was before the pandemic, in meeting with foreign embassies to encourage international students to come to Peralta. And there was a whole series of, you can see the list there, a whole series of embassies that we met with the education folks in those embassies. Sometimes we met with the political people. And we made the case that they should take a look at the Peralta. It's got some unique, special resources. It's got a diverse student body. It's got lots of languages. It's got a lot of, it's a more welcoming place than if you went to some of the places in the Midwest where it's kind of not as diverse. And this is a place that people should think about coming. And we've been really helping to push the international student. And finally, she's no longer there, but Professor Charity Clay participated in a faculty development seminar program that was run by the Council of American Resource Centers. And that's a program where she went for 2 weeks for a faculty enrichment program in Senegal. And that was in a couple of years ago. And it's the faculty development seminar programs are again kicking off, and we will be talking to the staff and the faculty of Peralta and hope that they will be encouraging them to go to some of these other programs that are going to be happening over the next couple of years. And then if I could have the last slide, Sasha, thanks. Let's talk about next year. It's going to be an active year. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen in the election. In some ways, it almost doesn't matter because either way, there's going to be a lot of activity. There's the student loan forgiveness. There's no way that the colleges aren't going to be dragged into that before it's all said and done. There's going to be lawsuits, but you're going to be involved in that. They have to reauthorize the Higher Education Act that hasn't been reauthorized in many, many years, but they're going to try to do that. There's going to be more VA programs for counseling. And then there's going to be housing legislation. As you know, the state of California has put some money into faculty and student housing. And just a couple of weeks ago, when the chancellor was out there and Trustee Handy, we had conversations with the staff of Senator Feinstein, and we're really looking at trying to find some federal loan guarantee for student housing or loan programs. Again, I think that Peralta has some real assets that it brings to the table because you've got land, both at Alameda and at Merritt, which is really an important cost share that you can bring to the table. And when they were out here, we had some really interesting discussions about food services done with your food programs, and a way of really kind of almost comprehensive services. And when we talked to Feinstein's people about it, they were very, very intrigued and very, very excited. And then finally, there's going to be more federal appropriations. We don't think that earmarks are going to go away. We hope they're not going to go away. And we're going to be working very closely with the colleges next year to come up with some more funding and try to get some more direct appropriations to the Peralta Community College. So that's briefly what I wanted to highlight. We're happy to answer any questions. Again, we've enjoyed it very much. We'll be out there, I don't know, later on early next year, and happy to meet with people. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you, Jane. Mark, are you ready?
I am. I also have a PowerPoint. Sasha, if you'd pull it up. Again, President Reese, Chancellor, trustees, members of the public, it's good to be here. I'm going to go over a bit of what we saw last session, where we think we'll be going next session, and some of the priorities that we're looking at for next year. Next slide. So I don't think it's any surprise. This was a very good year statewide in the budget. These were big wins as far as institutional support is concerned. There was a large cost of living increase that Peralta will enjoy a big chunk of. But on top of that, we were able to advocate for a $600 million additional base increase. That's on top of the cost of living, and that'll go directly into your base funding. Additionally, there's $200 million for part-time faculty healthcare that will increase the reimbursement rate that you receive for health care that's provided to your part-time faculty. $150 million for student retention and enrollment. That's $2.4 million for Peralta that you can use for outreach. Money for scheduled maintenance. I heard earlier in the meeting talking about the need for funding for upgrading facilities. That'll be available for you. Funding for data and cybersecurity was also included in the budget, $75 million one time, but also $25 million ongoing. And then specifically for Peralta, that's $440,000 in affordable student housing planning grants. And that's $110,000 for one grant for each college to look into whether what it would be feasible or not to provide affordable student housing at your campuses. Next slide. So there was a change to the student-centered funding formula. It creates a funding floor at the end of the 24-25 budget year. But starting in 25-26, you would receive the greater of what you would receive under the funding formula or what you would receive and hold harmless. So if you were no longer, as you know, right now, the district is in hold harmless. If you were to continue to be in hold harmless, you would no longer receive a COLA. You would just stay at that funding level. And as you know, you would actually be losing money because you would no longer be keeping up with the cost of doing employee cost increases, utilities. So we really have, you say, 3 years to address what we're looking at as a funding formula issue that could severely impact the district. Next slide. So there were also a number of budget wins for students. 200 million in the student success and completion grant. This is more
direct financial aid for students to pay for things like computers, textbooks, tools, $25 million in additional funding for the Promise program, which means that all full-time students can go to community college for free instead of just first-time full-time students. And then 30 million for the Higher Up program, which is funding that will go to formerly incarcerated students that you can access as additional funding for those students so that they perhaps don't have to work as much, can take an extra course. And then there was the implementation of the Cal Grant Equity Framework, which really helps community college students and provides additional funding for community college students for access costs. And it was put in the budget. The catch is that it's not to be implemented until the 24-25 year and is contingent on funding being available at that time. So we'll need to continue to advocate for that. And then I did want to point out, this was in the K-12 budget, but it affects community colleges. We've done a lot of work around dual enrollment for Peralta, and there's $200 million through the Department of Education to expand dual enrollment programs, partnerships between K-12 schools and community colleges. Next slide. I won't go through all of these, but these were some of the major bills of interest this year. AB 1187 is a bill that would allow you to collect apportionment for tutoring. As you know, a very high profile bill, AB 1705, went through. AB 1187 will help serve those students that are going directly into college level courses by allowing you to set up tutoring centers and collect apportionment for that. Another bill, AB 1716, allows you the opportunity to provide employee housing, affordable employee housing, and access tax credits if you limit it to just employees from your district. I talked about the Cal Grant bill. AB 1856 related to part-time faculty would have increased the load for part-time faculty, was vetoed by the governor. And then just one other bill, AB 2627, provides an opportunity for you to create an MOU with your local county or other local state agency to provide contact information for outreach to certain students to let them know that a community college is for them is probably free. So another opportunity for you to outreach to your communities and let students know that you're there for them. Next slide. So issues that we're looking at for 2023, and this came up just earlier, but we're looking at an alternative policing potential pilot project for the district. If we can get some money from the state to pull down and cover some of the costs that you're moving forward on, with the potential of finding what that would look like for statewide implementation. Going to again ask for more base allocation, more money for technology, more money statewide for mental health and safety. This would be different than what would come directly to Peralta. Funding for CalSTRS and CalPERS relief on the employer side, and then a further investment in affordable student housing so that there's construction money available if under your feasibility studies it makes sense for you to potentially develop affordable student housing. Next slide. More issues. There's going to be issues around basic needs, particularly students with dependent children, workforce training. Like I said, we'll need to continue to push for the financial aid reform. And then again, more money for deferred maintenance. and instructional equipment. Next slide. So the political outlook for 2023, we're very likely, as all you know, going to have the same governor. We're going to have a new permanent state chancellor. It sounds like they moved the search up. Initially, they had said they wanted to go a year. Now they're looking at 6 months. And then I should note, even though we had a great year this year, at this point, revenue projections are down for the fiscal year. Next slide. And I believe this is a slide that your chancellor has already showed you, but this is from the LAO, and their best guess is that revenues could be around 8 billion below projections, and they have an 80% chance of the revenues falling below those projections. We do have a healthy reserve from the last couple of years, and there's still a few months before we know exactly what we'll be looking at, but I think we need to be a little more cautious this year than we've been in the last 2 years. Next slide. So political outlook, the question is there going to be a speaker battle? We have our current speaker, Mr. Rendon, was being challenged for his title. He said he was going to keep it. They didn't end up taking it from him. He said he was going to run for it again. So we'll see. I think a lot depends on what happens in these November elections and who wins in some of the key battleground areas as to who will be our next speaker. And there's going to be a lot of turnover next year, a lot more turnover than we normally see. There's at least 23 out of 80 assembly seats will have new representatives, and 10 out of 40 Senate seats will have new senators. This district isn't going to see any new members likely, and in all likelihood, the leader of the Senate state Senate is not going to change, and so you'll still continue to see Senator Skinner as chair of the Senate Budget Committee. Either way, as many of you know, the Democrats will continue to control 2/3 of the seats in both houses. Next slide. More notes on the political outlook. Higher Education Committee is going to lose its chair and also 3 to 4 members. Senate Education Committee will lose its chair and at least 1 other member. So you're going to see not only a lot of turnover in both houses, but a lot of turnover in the committees that oversee the policies that govern Peralta. Next slide. Next slide. And then just real quick, this is a last minute slide that I added at the end when the governor announced that he was going to end, this came up earlier, the state of emergency at the end of February. Just 2 areas as a community college that should be noted is when the state of emergency ends, in all likelihood, well, almost assuredly, the Brown Act meetings are going to have to return to in person. The other thing is that emergency conditions allowance, ECA, which artificially holds up the number of students that you're serving, will be ended at the end of this fiscal year. So just 2 things that you should be aware of moving forward. So really on the funding formula, if the ECA ends up impacting your district, depending upon how many students you have at the end of this year, we really have a year to work on the funding formula. One other thing the chancellor wanted me to note, because I think one of the trustees had asked about the universal health care bill. There was not the political will to pass it this year. It died without a hearing in committee. The LAO had put out a analysis estimating costs in the hundreds of billions of dollars. I imagine a bill will be introduced again this year, but with the revenue projections the way they are, I don't foresee political will going forward on that this year. So with that, I know I went through a lot of information, but happy to take any questions you might have.
Thank you. I don't think I see any hands.
Trustee Gonzalez, one has his
Oh,
hand
yes,
up.
go ahead. I'm sorry. I couldn't see you.
Thank you for that report. I just want to focus in on the very last thing on the universal single payer healthcare. So, all right, LAO scores it a particular way, but at the end of the day, this is a political issue. This isn't really a question of affordability. It's a question of moving money around and whose pocket it's coming out of and where it's going to. And in general, the concept of universal single payer healthcare, which would massively reduce overhead costs, makes sense. So this is in part a political question. How do you gain the political momentum? Seems to me that every public agency in the state has a very serious interest in handling this issue, particularly those districts that haven't begun to think about how to finance the costs of retiree health insurance, et cetera. We have our own awkward way of doing that. It's got a lot of wrinkles in it, but we're doing it. It's also quite costly. How do we move the ball on that? Where does that conversation begin? Because it seems to me that as a group of elected officials, trustees across the state actually have a fair amount of influence, as do CFOs and CEOs, if there were the political will. So where does that conversation begin? It seems to me that that's a place where we might take some leadership. We represent a very progressive area that has strong support for this concept. And we also know that we're not covering our retirees. So, post 2004 retirees. So there's even more like incentive for us as a district to move this issue. Doesn't seem central to our mission, but when we think about the barriers to success that are created because of the high cost of health insurance for faculty, staff, and students, this does then become a much more relevant issue, as relevant as housing or transportation. So I don't know, you've been doing this a long time, where the bodies are buried and where there are opportunities. Where are there opportunities here? Are there?
I think I'll start with, we know that this governor, it was something that he had said he wanted to do when he was first elected. I don't know if there is the will in the assembly with the current speaker. But there is a lot of political desire to do this, even outside of the trustees. But one of the areas that I think you could start, or we could start, would be to get together with other progressive trustees, such as in LA, in San Diego, in some of the larger San Francisco, in the larger urban areas where there's a desire for this policy, and work with the league, the Community College League, and all of the other, those that sit on the Consultation Council, and join more thoroughly with the Nurses Association and with those organizations that are pushing for universal health care.
Well, this board is on record as supporting single payer healthcare. We've done that a number of times. So it's not out of our scope to be thinking, oh, this is something that this board and this district has supported and currently supports. We've never withdrawn our endorsement of single payer healthcare. So
Right.
I would just, you're the expert in the lobbying world. I think the league, if we could get the league moving in this direction, but your firm represents a number of these key districts, and you're in a really perfect place to have those strategic conversations that might help. And if I think there are probably other members of this board who play in the political arena who might be helpful, and you probably have some sense of who those are. You see the
Right.
politically ambitious people on this board and what they want to accomplish for our communities. So I'm just speaking again as one trustee with a high level of interest in this issue. I think it would greatly benefit our district if we could move this, but it would also move the state and the welfare of students throughout the state as well as working people. So I'll leave it at that, and maybe the next time we'll have a little more progress. I'd be
Yeah.
happy to talk with you offline as well.
That'd be great. I'd be happy to do that. And, this year, the league conference is back in person in November. I don't know if people are going, but I think there's an opportunity for those conversations to happen at those events as well now.
Well, the next time we rub elbows, let's do that.
All right, that sounds great.
Thank you. It's good to hear some of the work that's being done on the statewide level, for sure. I feel like sometimes we talk a lot about what's happening here, but it's great to see it connect to the statewide level work. So thank you all, and federal. So thank you all for your presentation. Do you have any other questions or comments from colleagues? Okay, thank you very much. Sasha, I believe we do have to do a roll call vote, yes?
That is correct.
Okay, let's proceed.
Student trustee Hogan,
Yes.
student trustee Latino,
Yes.
trustee Withrow,
Yes.
trustee Jenkins,
Yes.
trustee Handy,
Yes.
trustee Gonzalez Ewan,
Yes.
trustee Delphine Polk,
Yes.
trustee Napoli Bellarice.
I don't believe she's on.
Oh, thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you very much, all. I know that we pulled 1.8 for discussion, so let's proceed.
.8.1.
Yes. And that is consider approval of an agreement for construction services with Thompson Builders Corporation in the amount of $24,605,000 for the new landscape horticulture complex project at Merritt College. Interim Vice Chancellor Altheria Smith.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. This project currently has 13%.
Excuse me, point of order.
Thank you. Sorry.
I think we need a motion.
We need a motion. I was just going to say, thank you.
I move the approval.
Oh,
We need a second.
I'll
For
second.
purpose- Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Discussion?
Thank you. I didn't mean to interrupt. I just
No
thought
worries.
procedurally we needed to do that. Thank you.
Thanks for keeping us on top of it.
Great, thank you. May I proceed now?
Please do.
Okay, I heard my name and I began talking. I'm excited about my projects, our projects. Anyway, this project currently has 13% of small local participation. Our district goal, not policy, our district goal is 25%. So the horticulture facilities is a very specialized construction. It's greenhouse, hydroponic, greenhouse construction, everything that's related to horticulture. So yes, we'd be very happy to continue to work with Thompson Builders, 360 and AECOM to improve our small local participation. But I would also like to look forward and work on establishing this goal as a policy so that we can further enforce the participation. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chancellor Smith. Trustee Jenkins, you have your hand up.
Yeah, thank you so much. We had a number of comments and public comment surrounding this project. Can you talk about, so our goal is 25% in policy, or is that just something that's stated?
No, our goal is 25%. It is not a district policy. And it is time that we really, moving forward, let's look to work this into a district policy and even increase it so that we can have more small local participation and help our community get those dollars back into the local community.
And is there a reason that we were only able to get to 13% on this project?
I believe because of the speciality of the construction. Again, it's a greenhouse construction, very limited classwork and lecture space. So hydroponics, it's all very specialized. So again, we could work further to increase it and work with Thompson Builders, and we'd be happy to do that with 360 and AECOM.
I would love if we can work to increase that. And if it's the will of the board, is it possible for us to direct the chancellor to get to a 25% policy as opposed to a goal for small and local emerging businesses?
It's policy, as we were reminded earlier. Trustee Jenkins is under the purview of the board. So if the board moves forward with the policy to do that, we'll implement it. But right now there is no policy. It's an aspirational goal to reach the 25%. I will tell you, prior to IVC Smith taking on that role, we were less than 5%, if at all. So we have made substantial progress given the projects that we put forward. And I believe given that we just got $150+ million in bond funds, and we are going to continue with our Measure G funds, that it would be appropriate time for the board to review that.
Thank you, Chancellor Jackson.
Thank you, Chancellor. VP, that's it for me.
Thank you. Trustee Gonzalez-Yuen.
Thank you, Trustee Jenkins, for taking this off consent so we could talk about it. I was really mindful of the public comments. So, Director Smith, thank you so much for your work. Chancellor, what is the relevant policy? So I'm gathering that we've got some kind of an administrative procedure that leads to the General Services Department having a goal, but not a requirement of 25%. So I'm trying to understand a couple of things. One is, what's the relevant board policy that needs to be revisited? There's a whole process, Trustee Jenkins, for revision of board policy. And we can initiate that to our board policy.
Yes, AP 2410 outlines the process for implementing a policy. It can come from the board, it can come from people in general. It goes to our subject matter experts, which would be IVC Smith. I don't know the history of the small SBLE. It's easier to say it that way. I believe you were there at the area when this was instituted. It was under Dr. Icaro.
Yes.
I remember that at the time it was something that came about as a recommendation from the community. It was not something that the board was involved in it, as it was operational, and it was something that was presented to the board And that, and this is my recollection from being at College of Alameda at the time. And it was just as it says, it was an aspirational goal that the district, when possible, I don't even know the language per se, would try to attain a 25%, a small local business. That's been very difficult in very specialized areas. And I believe that the horticulture project is one of those. So that's why we didn't set a standard, I believe, in the past of saying it absolutely has to be 25%. But there can be something that's written that says with exceptions, depending on a particular project, because then maybe we'll get more participation. But I will tell you, as part of the PLA, that has been difficult to move forward. That was one of the reasons that we really stopped negotiating, is because there were some issues that came up regarding guaranteeing that it would go to individuals that were, I'm trying to think of the term, but that were part of the PLA itself. So if you were a small local business, one of the things we were talking about is trying to guarantee a number. And that was one of the sticking points when we were meeting with the building trades, was on that, because some of the small local businesses are not unionized. So it's a much deeper issue than just establishing a standard, because it cannot be in violation of our PLA, which is still in effect for the next 2 years.
So thank you, Chancellor, for reminding us that we also have to balance this against the requirements of the PLA. And I think Trustee Handy was involved in the small local business board policy when the last we looked at it. So I think this is probably something the board will want to revisit. And Vice President, if you would, initiate that process as board officer, I think it'd be powerful to do that. One last question that I have for general services is, when we put this job out to bid, we set out specs, we set out minimum requirements, et cetera, and then, nice to haves, and then the whole thing gets scored. And we pick a vendor based on an overall bid. In the bidding specs, what is called for? Is there a mandatory? Is there a minimum? Is there a desirable for small local business? And in this particular case, were there other bidders who had higher small local business specs in their proposal? Did the current vendor, the one that is being proposed, did they have goals that they put forward that were part of our consideration? I think that just helps us know. We've got people saying, don't do this. That's pretty drastic action to stop staff this far along. That would be kind of rude to do. So, but knowing the background would be helpful.
Trustee Ewing, in our proposals, we do have it stated, it is a 25% goal, and people do list that, but we do also take the lowest responsible bidder. In this case, it was Thompson Construction. If we set a policy, we could then look at our small local business, the way we have our policy, the way we interact, and the way we award our contracts on a different level when it's a policy. It would, we've been talking about redoing the small local business program for quite a while. So maybe this is what we need to get it moving again. Well, not moving again, but give it a little bit more juice, a little bit more front row seat, and pull in more local businesses. But again, this is a very specialized project.
And within the structure of their bid, do we have any leverage to require or pressure them to increase that percentage that they have proposed? Or it's like, nah, it was just aspirational. They said they would try, and we don't have any, there's no teeth to it.
In honesty, Trustee Ewing, every time we've gone back to speak to vendors about their participation. They do make an effort to try to get more people on. If we go back, I'm sure that we could work with them to increase the participation. If that is the will of the board, we will do that.
So, Vice President, if this motion could be modified in some way to have conditional approval or approval with some nudge to the staff to encourage that, maybe the board would consider that as an amendment. And I'm not exactly sure what the language is. I'm just looking for something here, and I'm looking for guidance from council on this, so I'm not doing it on the fly here.
And I think before we do that, I think it might be best to get the other trustees that are in the queue as well.
I have Trustee Handy, and then I'll say a few words.
I was part of pushing for the first PLA, and I've been very disappointed that we haven't gotten to the second part. That's one part of it, because the first one we did it in a rush, and it has no teeth to it. I've been very disappointed as a woman of color that after 20 years, we are in the exact same spot we were in when I started. We keep having these conversations for foolishness because they're not conversations for actions. We've got words in it like aspiration, nudge. None of that comes out in results that make it possible for the people who live in this community to actually work and participate in the bond that they're actually contributing to. If Peralta is really serious about small local participation, then we will have policies that don't tie the hands of people in DGS who have to write these proposals. We won't have escape clauses for employees to have intent but never carry through. I am really sick and tired of seeing the excuses across the world of why we don't have equity, why we have disparities. If we are really serious about it, then we will untie the hand by using specific and very clear language that allows them to do this. I was absolutely incensed when we had the previous vice chancellor, went to the chancellor at the time and said, we are not making space for small local minority and female businesses to participate. We usually had a carve out of things on a smaller scope, X amount of millions. That was a carve out that we could use to ensure that we would get small local in participation, and they would not budge. So I'm saying that this is the way it is because we don't have intentional language. We've got a lot of conversations, but no conversations for action. And so until the board says specifically, this is what's going to happen, then it's not going to happen. 20 years from now, we'll still be having the same conversation. So let's put some actions that will actually show our intention to be fair to the community that supports us. And then let's untie the language so that DGS can actually put those contracts out there. And let's stop having people to come in and beg for what should be their right as community partners, as people who live here, people who pay taxes here. Otherwise, we keep looking at these construction sites, we look at all of these plans, and the same people are always getting those jobs. You know, the excuses will be, well, the scope is too large, so we can't let them do this, or we can't find any qualified applicants. A lot of it is because we have so many restrictions about what we can and cannot say about race, what we can and cannot do. But in reality, those conversations, we have legislation that prevents us from doing what we say we want to do. So we have to take a stance at some point, or we just got to sit here and say to the community, sorry, my bad. I know you came out and you supported us to get that bond. I know you guys really worked hard for us, but we don't have a space for you, because that's what it keeps amounting to. So, guys, I'm doing my parting shots, but 20 years and we're still having the same doggone conversations. But when I look here at all the people here, we represent all of the different colors. We represent small, minority, we represent female. Yet we cannot support people who look just like us through our $1 billion bond. We cannot find a way to make sure that our intentions actually happen. There has to be a different conversation, because what we're doing is not working. That's all I have to say on this.
Trustee Handy, I agree with you wholeheartedly. We need to change the rules. Right now, we are hampered by an aspirational goal that is not in board policy, it's not in administrative procedure, and that is what we're dealing with. And
Dr. Jackson, I actually thought it was a policy all these years. I've been telling people it is our policy to have a carve out for small local minority participation. I don't know when it became aspirational, because we said that this was what we always wanted to have.
Yeah.
So somewhere in the translation that leads up to here, it's a very different scenario than what I thought it was. We can go back and we can ask Chancellor Harris or some of the other people what exactly the language was during that time. Dr. Carl would know. I'm the only other one that was here at that time. But it was not aspirational. This was a policy. And now it's not. I don't know what happened.
I don't either, because when we reviewed it as part of our due diligence with going forward with early negotiations with the PLA, that was what we were told, is that that's not in board policy. And hence, that's why we were negotiating. And I agree. It needs to be, if we really want to make change and not just espouse it, we need to put it in a policy statement, and we will abide by it as a staff.
Royal, you have your hand up. Do you want to go ahead? I'll take myself out of stack.
Sure. I just wanted to just respond to Trustee Gonzalez-Wynn, and basically we're looking at two separate issues. One is the issue of this current contract that we're discussing, and the next is a overarching policy of the district. And with the motion that's currently presented, the motion could be amended to say, for the vice chancellor to move forward with, in negotiation with this contract to seek to get increased minority participation or vendors. However, the overarching policy discussion that we're talking about, that would be something that I would recommend that staff go back, get the language, present it to the board, and then get the direction directly from the board. Because right now we're kind of conflating two different things that we may not be able to work through at the present moment.
Thank you, Royal. That sounds good to me. How do we proceed from here? I see a couple hands up. Nikki, you want to say something else?
Yeah. So first of all, I think we need to be really careful in our language, because I don't think we can say minority participation. That's prohibited.
That's correct.
That's right.
Law.
That's right.
That's correct.
That's why we talk about small local businesses. And so let's cross our eyes, keep us out of trouble here. This is partially an equity thing, but it's also principally a question of local economic development. Is the language that I think that we can safely legally use. And I think that is the intent of the board. Individual board members might have all sorts of reasons that we care for, but I think the official intent of the board is small local business. And I like the language that our general counsel has put forward. Some version of that would be great. Somebody want to put that in writing and ask for an amendment? I don't remember whose motion and second this was.
This
Sasha,
was Trustee Withrow's motion and VP Polk's second.
So General Counsel, you had specific language. If you could just tweak it and give it back to
Local,
us.
local minority contractors.
well, we can't say minority, right?
It was small local businesses, small local emerging businesses.
Can you pull up the actual SBLE document, Etheria, to use as a guideline? Because we already have that there. And so if we're going to make an amendment, it should align with what we have as a current procedure. I think that's.
So
And I
how
did
about
just
this
send
as
that.
an amendment to the language? Board moves approval with the condition that the chancellor work with the vice chancellor to renegotiate the contract to increase small local emerging business participation in the contract up to 25%.
Which contract are we talking about?
We're talking about the main contract for the entire project. It's their contract and they've got subs. So they go out and they sub out work and we're saying, hey, we'd like 25% of your subcontracted work to be small local emerging businesses. And we'd like to push harder on this.
The only thing I would add is rather than hold this particular contract to that 25%, just listening to the concerns voiced by the vice chancellor, we don't know if that is the right number in this particular situation. So I think even using language of increasing, however, that's just my recommendation without knowing the particulars, because this contract is actually negotiated through DGS counsel, not general counsel, and not even contract counsel.
I also want to make sure that we are
language-
following the PLA, Nikki. I mean, I don't want to add language that's going to make us get us out of compliance.
I think the language that I put forward is not mandatory. It encourages, but does not require. And it sets a goal of 25%, but not a litmus test. So I think with the encouraging language, it's permissive, it's not a requirement. And I think it expresses the intent of the board here.
I don't know if I would agree with that, but I'll go ahead and call on Trustee Jenkins.
So I want to see what my colleagues think about continuing this item and then having DGS come back to us at the next board meeting. And then maybe there will be something that is more palatable for the board with the concerns that have been addressed tonight.
Can I just speak to that?
Go ahead, Chancellor.
This has come up at the 11th hour. We have $150 million tranche that was just approved. This is not going to be the only contract that we move forward with. You can give me guidance to work with IVC Smith and with the vendor to encourage it, but I would not want to put a addendum to a contract and then have the vendor come back to say that we're in breach of that because that was not included in the RFP.
That's a very good point, Chancellor. And I also do, again, want to be mindful of PLA terms. I am speaking on behalf of myself. I don't have enough information to make any amendments to this at this time.
I would recommend that the board move forward with adoption. And as Trustee Ewan indicated, that we come back to the board, give you some additional information, at the same time, work with the vendor to increase this, keeping in mind, as you indicated, Vice President Delphine Polk, that it does not abrogate our contract with the PLA, and that there are individuals that can perform the sub duties that the general contractor has that have the expertise to work with this particular project, which is very It's not a general classroom. It's not just a regular building. It is one that has some very specific specifications in terms of water, drainage, sewage, and the like.
My hand is raised again.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Trustee Handy.
I understand that we will have other contracts, but again, for me, it is, I don't see a problem with having something in the language of this contract that lets these people know that this is what Peralta wants, and equity. And any company who does not have an interest in small local minority participation should not even be applying to Peralta. I'm just going to be real straightforward because we're not going to change this any other way. We've been talking about elevator operators. When I came in to this 20 years ago, I was talking about how we do not get, all the elevator companies do not hire minorities. It is one of the most racist unions there is. I'm going to put it out there. I've watched it since my kid was 18 years old. Nothing's changed. All of our elevators are still with the same small companies that don't have minorities. What? That goes back to disparities, folks. It goes back to blocking people from being able to get those expertise and things because they are not at the same level as the larger companies or whatever. So you're never going to have small local minority folks in these specialized areas. And then also, let's go back to the Barbara Lee building. When we did that, it was supposed to be built building D, and then we changed over and decided to build a new building because it would only cost a few million more. That building, they decided to do that design bill, except for one thing. Design bill, it was not, the exception for design bill is any science type of building. So we built it. We knocked out the minority architect who had he'd come up on the list. It was his turn to do the design for that building when it was building D. And then the decision came to do a design bill, which does not fit in that category for the science building, but that's what was chosen. And the minority architect was out. So yes, there are specialized areas, but there's specialized and not other people who can participate for a reason because of systems of inequity. So I would suggest that we still put the language in there. And we look at this company who has come to us saying they want to do this job, and we make sure that they actually really try to do it. And we send a clear message out. If you can't have minority people working, people who live in this city or paying these taxes that gave us this bond, if you don't have a problem with having diversity within your company, then don't apply here. We have to find the words. We've got a whole board here, a whole room full of intelligent people. We should be able to find the language that states clearly our intentions without violating any laws. And then we need to keep our intentions centered. Otherwise, the same conversation will be happening 20 years from now. I've seen it. I'm so disappointed over all of the things that I thought we would accomplish. But when you have every 2 years, you've got a different administration. Every 2 years, you've got different elections and stuff. Too many very important things stay the same. And this is the most important thing. This is the commitment to the people in this city. And I think we got to find a way, folks, because we found a way when we did the Barbara Lee building. We went with design build, even though design build doesn't work for that. We've always found a way. Let's try to find a way to do the right thing. And if that's move this over and another thing comes through, when is the next thing coming opportunity for people to bid? Because small local minority female businesses, they want to have a nice Christmas for their kids too, just like the big folks. So I don't want to see next year, year after next. Let's have something that we can say to the community that says, we are really listening to you and we appreciate you and we want to try to make sure that you have an opportunity to work here too. And maybe other parts of the city, like the city of Oakland, will follow suit and do it as well. But right now, not doing a good job, folks.
Trustee Handy, you don't get any disagreement from me. My concern again is the liability for the issue, in that we put out a bid, we have a PLA agreement, and on the fly, we're going to try to come up with something that will walk between those two without giving it due diligence and review. And this project has been ongoing for at least the last, I don't even know, IVC Smith, 18 months, 2 years, 2.5 years?
In design for 18 months and 10 years waiting for match from the state. So it's a long time coming.
So I have Trustee Jenkins, you have your hand up. Do you have something else to add?
No, I need to lower it.
Okay, given that there are several legal concerns here, I have concerns about making any changes to this, Chancellor. I think that you articulated that well. Nikki, you have your hand up.
Yes, I have a motion and an amendment. If it gets a second, we'll see whether it flies.
Can you repeat your motion?
I'm going to read it and I'll paste it into the chat so that it can be picked up. And the motion is as follows. I've listened to the concerns and I believe this language meets the needs and the legal requirements that are in front of us. So here's my language. An amendment to the motion. The board approves this item while directing the chancellor to use whatever legal tools we have available to work with the contractor to move towards increasing small, local, emerging business participation to the 25% level on this project. And further, that within 6 months, the board revisit the board policy governing small, local, and emerging business participation in district contracting. This is now permissive language. It doesn't bind the chancellor to do anything, but it directs the chancellor to work with the vendor, use whatever legal tools we have, which will then balance the PLA with the contract, with the bidding specs, with our policy. So they get to go back and revisit whatever tools we have to move us aspirationally towards this 25%. And then moving forward, we will revisit this policy within 6 months. So that's my motion. I would ask for a second. If we get a second, and if it's considered a friendly amendment by the maker and the seconder, then we can move forward.
I have a question real quick. I apologize for interrupting, but I don't know. So technically the motion is to approve the contract, and I see your amendment, but you're adding an additional action in there in regards to having us look at the board policy. I don't know if that is allowed to include that in this current item.
I would agree, Sasha. Thank you for bringing that up. I would want a legal opinion on this. I do not feel comfortable moving forward with adjusting any language at this time without having legal look over it.
So I'm asking for a second. And if we get a second, then we can debate this. If we don't have a second, then it moves forward. So colleagues?
I'll second it for the debate purposes.
Okay. And so now we can have discussion on its merits, and I'm happy to revisit this question of the second part of it that Sasha has raised. I don't understand why we could not, within the same motion, include a direction that the board will revisit this. It doesn't affect the contract, but it does require us as a board to come back.
All you have to do is.
I have a question about.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say you don't have to have a motion and attach it to a contract to direct me to go and bring this back in 6 months. It doesn't have to be attached to this particular item. The board can direct me if the board, if so desires, to go and do this, just like you've asked for additional information. I have a 4 or 5 page document showing all the requests that you've made that we've completed and provided information to you. So I don't believe it needs to necessarily be attached to this particular contract. You just have to say, Chancellor, bring back some additional information within 6 months and we'll do it.
I'd like to make an alternative motion. Is that okay, VP?
Yes, I also want to be mindful that this was not agendized for this item. So per the Brown Act. So go ahead, proceed, Trustee Jenkins.
So I want to make a motion to move the item as appeared in the agenda, and we will trust that our chancellor will do everything within our power to alleviate some of our concerns.
Bill, do you agree? You made the motion, right? The original motion?
This alternative motion.
Oh, the alternative motion. Okay.
Wait, so let's
Can
get clear.
we restate what we're doing so we all are clear and on the same page, please?
Thank you.
Well, we need a second for Kevin's motion.
I would second Kevin's motion.
Can we repeat Kevin's motion, Trustee
Okay.
Jenkins? Sorry.
So maybe, I think this is what you guys are getting at. Did Bill originally move the motion as it appeared in the agenda?
Correct.
Okay, so I could just roll with that. No need for
Okay.
my agenda.
I was gonna say, if the motion on the floor, and Royal, correct me if I'm wrong, if
Yes,
the
ma'am.
motion on the floor is to move the item as presented, and the guidance from the board to me, their one employee, is to come back with some recommendations that will strengthen our current procedure that says we will strive to come back with some definitive information to provide the board a way to move forward to strengthen this. That doesn't require a motion, that just requires consensus and the board to tell me to do that. So I think, as Sasha was saying, they're really two different things, and that's what we will do.
Yes.
And we will work with the vendor to see if they can increase that, if
Point
that's
of order.
the charge that the board wants to make.
Thank you.
Trustee Gonzalez Wynn has a point of order.
Go ahead, Nikki.
Okay, the question has been raised whether the amendment is appropriate because it includes something that's not the contract. Linda, would you be fine with a revision of this amendment that took out the second sentence, that is the policy sentence? The chancellor hears we want to do this. I think the board knows that we want to do this, but this would keep the first part, which is to direct the chancellor to go back and use whatever tools she has to work with the vendor to increase the small local emerging business participation to 25%. So that's the motion. Linda, if you would accept the amendment to that motion, that is the current motion on the floor. Otherwise,
Okay.
it's the motion that's it.
I can accept that. What is most important to me is that we send a message out tonight to our community that we hear them and we're going to do what we can to make this right. That's what I think the most important thing is right now, is that we're going to do whatever we can to make sure that we can support our small local participation. So if the message goes out either in this motion, or if it goes out in a statement, or they just hear us and hear our sincerity in there, then I think it's a good start.
Okay, so the motion has been amended, and that's the motion that is in front of the board right now.
Mhm. And that's okay. I'm good with that.
All right, Vice President, the ball is in your court to move to a vote or continue discussion.
Could we repeat the motion again?
Okay, so the motion is to amend the main motion with the following statement. The board approves this item while directing the chancellor to use whatever legal tools we have available to work with the contractor to move towards increasing small local emerging business participation to the 25% level on this project.
Let's move to a vote, please. Can I entertain?
Would you like me to do roll call on it, or how do you?
I believe that's the next right I see you nodding your head, Royal.
We have a first and a second. Are we ready?
Yes.
Student trustee Hogan. Student trustee Latino.
Yes.
Trustee Withrow.
Yes.
Trustee Jenkins.
No.
Trustee Handy.
Yes.
Trustee Gonzalez Yuan.
Yes.
Trustee Delphine Polk.
No.
And trustee Napoli Bellarice is absent. So we have 3 yeses, 2 nos, and 1 absent. It doesn't pass.
So now we go back to the main motion.
Okay. We have a first and a second, don't we?
Well,
Council?
Yes.
the original, so we're going back to the original
Can
first
we-
and second, which was
Can we,
Withrow.
can we just move again?
Yes, council, please, can you repeat? Yes, please jump in, Royal.
So the motion was to move the item. That was the original motion. Trustee Withrow, was that still your motion?
Yes.
And I did second it.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Roll call, please.
Student trustee Hogan. Student trustee Latino.
Yes.
Trustee Withrow.
Yes.
Trustee Jenkins.
Yes.
Trustee Handy.
Yes.
Trustee Gonzalez Yuan.
Abstain.
Trustee Delphine Polk.
Yes.
And trustee Napoli Bellarice is absent. Motion passes.
Thank you very
With the
much.
original
Yes.
approval.
Thank you for that clarification. Okay, that's it for our consent agenda. Let's go ahead and move to 11.1 Board of Trustees reports. Trustee Gonzalez Yuan, you have anything to report?
I'd just like to wish our community happy Diwali. Festival of Lights. And
Thank you.
Peace and blessings to all.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Trustee Withrow?
I'll pass.
Thank you. Trustee Jenkins?
Pass.
Trustee Handy?
Pass.
Okay. Student trustee Hogan, do you have anything to report? Student trustee Hogan? Okay. Student trustee Latino?
Nothing to report.
Okay. The only thing I will say for my report, unless I'm missing somebody, is that I am not going to have office hours this month, but I will be resuming my office hours next month every third Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. And I will announce the location on my Twitter account. Okay, let's go ahead and go to announcements. So the first announcement is we have our Peralta Charrette on Thursday, November 10th. The Charrette is a community discussion forum to inform our 5-year strategic plan and will take place at Laney College Theater from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. Visit the Peralta website at peralta.edu, scroll down to the events section for more details and to register. Free breakfast and lunch are included, so please register so we know how much food to prepare. Number 2, Monday, October 24th, the Peralta Community College District announced that in alignment with Alameda County Public Health Department policy, masks are no longer required on Peralta College's property. Read more at safe.peralta.edu. On Tuesday, November 1st, Laney College Classified Senate Lounge will be renamed the Rivas Classified Senate Lounge in memory of Mr. Rene Edgar Rivas, who worked at Peralta for 36 years with dignity, excellence, knowledge, and skill. Most recently as the Laney College Admissions and Record Supervisor before his untimely passing. There will be a dedication on November 1st from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. We will be joined by members of Mr. Rivas's family. Thanks to Laney College Classified Senate President Hope Lane. for her leadership in honoring our dear colleague. Number 4, the Peralta Community College District and our campuses will be closed Friday, November 11, 2022, in observance of Veterans Day. To all the students, employees, and board members who are veterans, thank you for your service. And includes you, Trustee Withrow and Chancellor Jackson. Thank you for your service to our country. Dr. Johnson, did you want to say a few words to close in memory?
Oh, yeah, thank you. It's just only just to say once again, you know, Jenny, you'll be missed terribly. And but we take comfort in knowing that even though she may not be with us outwardly, she'll always be with us inwardly. So I'll just end it there.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. And with that, I believe we can adjourn our meeting.
Good night,
Thank you all
everybody.
very much.
Thank you.